If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 1, L, half Lunarian and half giant. L. See Circle Calendar, year 1459. The second half of the New World, Elbaff, the village of the giants. A giant girl with sweet features, golden hair tied in 2 braids, and a stature of no less than 5 meters, bounced happily as she ran over. She shouted to a boy of similar build, though with black wings on his back, calling out loudly, "We're about to play hide and seek. Do you want to join us?" "No, you all go ahead, Gerd." The boy named El declined without hesitation. "I still have to train with the 2 elders." He had short, grayish-white hair. Though he looked around 8 or 9 years old, his face was firm and strikingly handsome, exuding a maturity beyond his years. On his back was a pair of black wings, and on the back of his head, a flame burned fiercely. "All right then," Gerd responded, clearly disappointed. But soon, she pushed aside her frustration and ran joyfully toward the other giant children, laughing and playing. Bokakaka, El truly is a determined child. A towering figure, wearing a horned helmet, with a long beard flowing like a waterfall, so long it touched the ground, sat stroking his beard, smiling warmly at the winged boy. This child was not an ordinary giant. Although he only had half the blood of a giant, he was born a prodigy, invulnerable to weapons and possessing immense strength, with terrifying talent and potential. His future was boundless. Indeed, Zap Baba. Another enormous elder, sitting nearby with a mountain-like, graying beard, also stroked his whiskers, his eyes full of approval and admiration. He laughed, perhaps one day, he could become the strongest warrior in the world. These 2 elders were none other than Mountain Beard, Yarl, and Waterfall Beard, Jorl, former leaders of the giant pirates and elders of Elbaff. They were highly revered, not only in Elbaff but also by most giants across the world. Thanks to the giant race's lifespan, which was at least 3 times that of ordinary humans, both elders were already over 300 years old, earning the title of the oldest warriors in the world. "Your praise is too generous, elders," El replied, showing neither shyness nor arrogance. Confidence radiated from his expression as he smiled and said, "I only hope to master Elbaff's 3 great spears soon, but I still have a long way to go." He was a half-giant, his mother was a giant, but his father was no ordinary human. His father was from the legendary Lunarian race, a tribe considered gods. From birth, El and his parents had been on the run, hiding in the first half of the Grand Line to escape the pursuit of the world government. His parents fought relentlessly against the Navy and CP agents to protect him but were tragically killed in the process. At the age of 3, the emotional trauma of his parents' deaths awakened his memories of a past life. Afterward, El continuously evaded the world government's pursuit. Using the innate flight ability of the Lunarians, he daringly ventured into the Calm Belt, ending up on a deserted island where he survived alone. Perhaps due to his half-giant bloodline, his skin color differed from his Lunarian father's brown complexion, resembling his giant mother's more typical skin tone. As he grew, his already extraordinary physique, inherited from both the giants and the Lunarians, began to undergo an incredible transformation. His appetite increased drastically, and his strength became overwhelming, his skin impenetrable, not even the fiercest sea kings could bite through it. His raw power allowed him to tear apart sea kings with his bare hands, establishing dominance over the Calm Belt sea creatures. A year ago, at the age of 8, while hunting sea kings alone underwater, he stumbled upon a decayed shipwreck and found a devil fruit aboard. After consuming it, he gained the power of the mythical Zoan fruit, the snake fruit, model, Quetzalcoatl. Now 9 years old, El, with his formidable body and incredible flight ability, followed a Viva card his mother had left behind and crossed the Red Line, traveling from the first half of the Grand Line to the giant village of Elbaff. Due to his mother's giant heritage, the giants of Elbaff accepted him. For the past half-year, he had been training under the 2 former leaders of the giant pirates, with the aim of mastering Elbaff's greatest combat techniques and unlocking the power of Haki. "No, it's no exaggeration. You certainly have such potential." Yarl, the Mountain Beard, looked at the exceptional and flawless boy before him, smiling. "Zap Baba. Elbaff's strongest techniques aren't easily mastered, but with your talent, El, it's only a matter of time." Jorl, the Waterfall Beard, nodded with a smile, stroking his flowing beard. "You're still young. Even as a half-giant, your lifespan will far exceed that of ordinary humans. There's no need to rush, child. These two had once led the giant pirates, gaining legendary renown while sailing the seas. Their experiences far surpassed those of ordinary giant warriors. Yet even they, having witnessed countless geniuses during their long journeys, had never encountered someone like El, a child who seemed favored by the heavens, a born warrior with skin tough as steel. They had personally witnessed El standing still while fully grown giant warriors struck him with their swords at full force, only to find that their weapons couldn't even make a dent. Instead, their hands went numb, and in some cases, their weapons broke. Inheriting half-giant blood, El possessed tremendous strength, easily lifting fully grown giants with one hand and tossing them into the air like a human child throwing a rag doll, catching them again effortlessly. Furthermore, as a member of the fabled Lunarian race, he could control flames and was nearly invincible. Once fully grown, there might be no one in the world capable of killing him. If that kid Hatruden had even a tenth of your potential, we'd be overjoyed. Yarl and Jorl glanced over at a giant boy not far away, diligently training and sweating profusely as he swung his sword in a serious, methodical manner. Hatruden had strong willpower and worked hard, but his talent was lacking in comparison to El, nowhere near the level of the new generation of giant pirates leaders, Dori the Blue Ogre and Bragi the Red Ogre, whom Yarl and Jorl had trained after they retired. Unfortunately, those two had fallen into a fierce conflict for reasons unknown, fighting a duel on a distant island. Without leaders, the giant pirates were left leaderless, with many members captured by the navy and nearly publicly executed. It was only thanks to Sister Carmel, the Holy Mother, who intervened and persuaded the navy not to execute the giant warriors, that the centuries-old hostility between the world government and the giants was eased. Now, some giants even served as vice-admirals in the navy. To this day, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre had not returned, with no word of who had won. The once famous giant pirates had fallen into silence again. Now, they had finally encountered a natural-born warrior like El, yet his ambitions lay elsewhere. Chapter 2, Holy Mother, Observation Haki. Ha! 9454, 9455, 9456. As the sun set on the outskirts of Elbaff's giant village, a figure much larger than a human, with wings on his back, was drenched in sweat. El, soaked and with a determined look in his eyes, continued to swing his sword relentlessly. Whoosh! The air filled with the sound of the blade slicing through it, creating gusts of wind so strong that surrounding rocks, both large and small, were caught up and scattered. Towering trees, so massive that even giants needed several of them to encircle, swayed under the pressure of the wind. Even some of the adult giants watching felt uneasy, not daring to approach for fear of being injured by accident. El, though you possess incredible natural strength, unmatched by anyone, your sword swings are still neither fast nor precise enough, Mountain Beard, Yarl, stroked his beard as he patiently instructed. When you can swing without creating such fierce wind pressure, and instead focus and condense all your strength into each strike, only then will you be able to master Elbaff's proud spear techniques. Zap Baba. The giant race, by nature, possesses great size and strength far beyond that of other intelligent species. Waterfall Beard, Jorl, nodded with a smile, offering his own guidance. Thus, the combat techniques of the giants are straightforward and powerful, without the flashy moves of human swordsmanship or martial arts. Each strike is about force overpowering finesse, tearing through and destroying everything in its path. You must focus completely, with a clear mind, free of distractions. Channel all your strength, momentum, and will into each strike. Yes. I will work hard, elders. El replied with steely resolve, pausing his movements to absorb the elder's advice. He took stock of his weaknesses and eagerly sought to correct them. Though born a prodigious talent, a natural monster, El wasn't content with becoming just another Charlotte Linlin. That wasn't his ambition. His dreams reached far beyond. Taking a deep breath, El closed his eyes, adjusting his breathing and concentration. Once again, he resumed swinging his sword. Whoosh, whoosh. The sharp blade gleamed, and the wind pressure, though still formidable, was already less scattered than before. What incredible natural talent! Yarl and Jorl both nodded silently, deeply impressed. El was indeed favored by the heavens, a born warrior with extraordinary gifts. His ability to quickly comprehend their teachings was remarkable, far surpassing the simple-minded Hatruden. In just half a year, El had nearly mastered Elbaff's combat techniques. If he weren't still so young and physically undeveloped, he might have already fully grasped Elbaff's spear techniques. 29,995, 29,996, 29,997. As time passed, El continued to train, his sweat soaking the ground beneath him. Bokakaka. El, that's enough training for today. Yarl said with satisfaction, looking up at the darkening sky. It's getting late, we should head back. Indeed. Training must be done in moderation, there's no need to rush. We'll continue tomorrow. Jorl added with a smile, stroking his waterfall-like beard. This was something they appreciated about El. Despite his extraordinary talent and half-giant blood, he possessed an iron will and remarkable perseverance. He never feared hardship, never complained, and remained dedicated to his training, truly a rare quality. All right. See you tomorrow, elders. El exhaled deeply, stopping his training. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and watched as the two elders left. El, have you finished training? Not far away, an elderly woman dressed in black nun's attire, her face full of wrinkles, approached with a smile. She called out, "Today is Votan's birthday. I've prepared a big birthday cake. Would you like to join us?" She had a kind face and a cigarette in her mouth, smiling warmly. But as she looked at the young, handsome boy with black wings, like a fallen angel, there was a barely hidden greed and wariness in her eyes. This boy was a survivor of the Lunarian race, a people for whom the world government had posted a massive bounty. Anyone who reported traces of the Lunarians could earn a reward of 100 million berries. If someone captured a Lunarian alive, the reward would be even greater. However, El had always been distant and cold toward her, making it impossible for her to lure him to the sheep's house. Besides, he was a powerful monster impervious to weapons, incredibly strong, and wielding the terrifying abilities of a mythical Zoan. She feared him. "No, thank you, sister. I've already prepared dinner," El smiled and politely declined. As someone who had traveled from another world, he knew exactly who this Holy Mother really was. The so-called intervention to stop the Navy from executing the giant pirates' warriors had been nothing more than a performance orchestrated by the world government and Carmel herself. Her true identity was that of an infamous trafficker in the underworld, known by the code name Mountain Witch. The orphans and troubled children sent to the sheep's house were not adopted by kind-hearted people but sold directly to the world government or other powers. Those with talent were sold to the government, brainwashed, and trained to become CP agents. As for those with mediocre talent or physical defects, their fates were far darker. Carmel had long coveted El, the survivor of the Lunarian race. But she wasn't content to simply report his existence to the world government and claim the 100 million berries reward. She feared his power and knew she couldn't use force against him. She had even tried to lure him out of Elbaff, hoping to ambush him with CP0 or the Navy. But El had paid no attention to her, leaving her with no options. Yet El had his own reasons for allowing her to remain. He was waiting for her to bring more talented children from around the world and from different races. These children, whom Carmel had set aside to sell to the government before her retirement, had exceptional potential. With a little training, they could become a powerful force for him. "Very well, I won't bother you then. Be sure not to overexert yourself with your training." Carmel smiled warmly but fumed inside. That brat had repeatedly refused her offers. If she ever got the chance, she would sell him to the world government without hesitation. He was worth a fortune. "Take care, sister." El responded with a warm smile, watching Carmel walk away. Little did she know that his Lunarian and giant bloodline came with more than just a monstrous physique. Born with observation haki, El had trained for years to strengthen it to the point where he could even hear her heart. Her malicious intent and schemes, which she thought were well hidden, were as clear as day to him. Over the years, El had also learned where Carmel, through her child trafficking business, had stashed her vast fortune. If he wanted to, he could take it effortlessly. He wanted both the people and the treasure. Everything Carmel had done was merely setting the stage for his own success. Did she plan to retire in peace? Hell might be the perfect place for her retirement. Chapter 3, Mythical Zoan Fruit, the Snake Fruit, Model, Quetzalcoatl. It's time to prepare dinner. Watching the setting sun, El decided not to continue training. He spread his wings wide. Whoosh! With a gust of wind, his towering figure rose into the sky, flying into the distance. Soon, El reached the shoreline of Elbaff's giant village. His large frame moved swiftly, skimming over the sea. Roar! Suddenly, a terrifying sea king, over 100 meters long, lunged out from the sea, its monstrous maw wide open as it attacked L. "I was waiting for you." L chuckled lightly, reacting swiftly. In midair, he abruptly turned, his right arm bulging with muscle as he unleashed a powerful punch. Whoosh! The force was so intense it distorted the atmosphere. Boom! Boom! With a thunderous impact, blood splattered everywhere. The terrifying punch struck the Sea King's massive head, causing it to explode. A gruesome hole went clean through, leaving a shocking sight. Sizzle, sizzle. Flames flared from the back of L's head, engulfing him in fire. The blood that splattered on him was instantly vaporized. The Sea King's massive body, over 100 meters long, lost its strength and began to crash toward the ocean. But L caught its bloody skull with one hand, effortlessly lifting the massive corpse. With a flap of his wings, he flew toward the shore. Splash! Water sprayed everywhere as the enormous corpse of the Sea King was lifted from the ocean, suspended in mid-air. Boom! Rocks scattered, and dust rose as L slammed the heavy body onto the long coastline. Swish! Back on the shore, L swiped his right hand through the air. Shing! Shing! Several sharp wind blades flashed by in an instant. The Sea King, which was over 100 meters long but considered only a small disaster in the seas near Elbaff, was instantly sliced into 8 pieces. Thanks to his constant training, L could now use his devil fruit powers to some extent even in his human form, without needing to fully transform. Huff! Next, L lightly stomped his foot on the ground. Swish! Swish! The earth trembled, and green sprouts broke through the soil. Before his eyes, they rapidly grew into massive vines, which pierced through the dissected Sea King, stringing up its pieces in the air. Even the organs were pulled out and cleaned by the vines. This was one of the abilities of the mythical Zoan snake fruit, model, Quetzalcoatl. The Quetzalcoatl was a god associated with rain, sowing, harvest, and fertility in mythology, symbolizing death and rebirth. It was the god of agriculture, the sky, and the sun. L was not only immune to all poisons but could also release powerful toxins. He possessed unparalleled offensive, defensive, and regenerative capabilities. Moreover, he could control storms, lightning, fire, and other elements, even summoning rain at will. He also had mastery over plant life, able to manipulate their growth and form. Most astonishingly, L could shed his skin to heal injuries, and each time he did, his body would grow larger. He speculated that the Quetzalcoatl form might even possess the power of resurrection after death, though he hadn't tested this theory and certainly wasn't foolish enough to try. Swish! Looking at the Sea King meat hanging on the vines like a small mountain, L couldn't be bothered to process it slowly. He grabbed a massive chunk of meat, larger than even a giant's body, and flames erupted from his hand, engulfing the meat completely. Sizzle, crackle! In an instant, the intense heat roasted the meat to perfection, filling the air with the savory scent of cooked meat. L tore off a large piece and began devouring it, finishing it in just a few bites. After repeating this process several times, it took him less than half an hour to completely finish off the Sea King's body before the sun had fully set. It was an impressive feat, enough to leave anyone speechless. Burp, the taste was so-so, but at least I'm full. L patted his slightly swollen stomach and lazily sat down, a fishbone dangling from his mouth. As he gazed at the rolling waves of the sea, his thoughts drifted to the past. From the moment he was born, the world government and navy had relentlessly hunted him. Time and again, he narrowly escaped death. It wasn't until he turned 3, when he awakened his past life's memories, that he could fully comprehend what was happening. His parents, who had sacrificed everything to protect him, had earned his recognition as his true family. Even though they were so young when they tragically perished, it was all due to the world government's actions. How could he not be enraged? One day, he would settle the score with the world government. Thinking of this, a cold gleam flashed in L's eyes. The red line, Mary Gosa. Someday, I'll walk straight up to it. As someone with Lunarian blood, it was inevitable that he would be at odds with the world government. Whether they feared the Lunarians' incredible natural abilities or coveted their power to survive in any harsh environment, or perhaps both, was unclear. Centuries ago, the world government had issued a bounty for any information on the Lunarians. Anyone who reported the whereabouts of a Lunarian could claim a reward of 100 million berries. Capturing one alive would bring an even greater reward. This bounty had no time limit and was still in effect. From the start, L and the world government were destined to be mortal enemies. The black wings on his back, grey-white hair, tanned skin, and flames on the back of his head, all these traits were the unmistakable signs of the legendary Lunarian race, making him easily recognizable. Over the long years, countless Lunarians had been persecuted and hunted, pushing their race to the brink of extinction. Only a few scattered survivors remained. Since there's no way out, I might as well shake the heavens and earth. Looking toward the red line, El clenched his fist. His eyes blazed with determination and ambition as he declared with unprecedented resolve, Navy, Celestial Dragons, World Government, just you wait, that empty throne is mine. The king of the world? If the Celestial Dragons could sit on it, why couldn't he? Not only would he sit on that throne, but he would do so openly, in broad daylight, unlike I'm, the so-called king of the Celestial Dragons, who lurked in the shadows like a rat, secretly occupying the throne. As a natural-born monster, possessing both Lunarian and giant bloodlines, and the powers of the mythical Zoan Quetzalcoatl, El had the confidence to achieve this. One day, he would return to the Lunarians' homeland atop the Red Line. Before the eyes of the entire world, he would wear the crown of the King of the World and ascend the highest throne, bringing the world to its knees. Chapter 4, Meeting Charlotte Linlin. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, half a month had gone by. At dawn, with the rising sun and a clear, bright sky, a golden beam of sunlight shone into a cave where a tall figure slept soundly. El, who had trained late into the night and spent the night in the cave he had set up as a training base along the coastline, was awakened by the sunlight. Is it morning already? El squinted, yawning as he lazily got up. Stretching, he picked up the bucket of fresh water he had stored in the cave along with his toiletries and began brushing his teeth. Despite his intense training, El still paid attention to his appearance whenever possible. He didn't like looking disheveled or wild. After finishing his morning routine, El suddenly noticed movement on the sea. In the distance, a large ship was approaching the shore and slowly docking. A slender human couple, accompanied by a girl in a pink dress about 4 or 5 meters tall, far larger than any normal human child, and a bit chubby, stepped off the ship. Judging from their attire, though not overly extravagant, it was clear that the family was either of noble or wealthy merchant status, and they lived a comfortable life. A natural-born destroyer? Finally, you're here. El's eyes narrowed, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. He fixed his gaze on the unusually large human girl, recognizing her immediately, Charlotte Linlin. The future Emperor of the Sea, one of the 4 emperors. Like him, she was a natural-born monster, invulnerable, immensely strong, and full of limitless potential. El had a clear and direct goal, to intercept Charlotte Linlin before Carmel could take her in. He had already made up his mind long before arriving in Elbaff, an audacious and bold plan. He didn't just want to recruit Charlotte Linlin, with her immense potential, and groom her to be his right hand, he also intended to work alongside this natural-born monster to restore the Lunarian race and create the most powerful godlike lineage in history. Linlin, reviving the Lunarian race will rely on you. El knew very well just how astonishingly fertile Charlotte Linlin was. While most women might consider having twins a rarity, she could give birth to several children or even a dozen at once, more prolific than a sow. With 2 heaven-gifted, natural-born monsters like them, combined with his Lunarian and giant bloodlines, El was certain their union would produce the strongest offspring, founding the most powerful family in the world, perhaps even to be known as the Lunarian God Clan. The seas would tremble in fear before them. Where are we? On the shore, the chubby little girl, larger than any adult, with a round, plump body and a huge backpack on her back, sat there. Tilting her head and staring curiously at her parents, who were about to return to the ship after bringing her ashore, she asked, "Papa, Mama, where are you going?" "Be a good girl, Linlin. Papa has some business nearby," and Linlin, the man in a suit and hat, looking somewhat uneasy, said, "Can you wait here for us?" This was their daughter Charlotte Linlin. She had an enormous appetite, a body far larger than a normal person's, and incredible strength. Yet she was still a playful child who couldn't control her monstrous strength. She would often cause destruction in towns or accidentally hurt others. Even her parents, at times, felt afraid of her, not to mention other people. They had heard that Sister Carmel, the Holy Mother, often took in troubled children from all over the world. So, they had spent a large sum to board a royal merchant ship and bring her to Elbaff. It wasn't that they were heartless or wanted to abandon her. They simply couldn't care for her anymore. Linlin had caused enormous damage to their town, losses beyond measure. However, since the Charlotte family were local nobles, the 5-year-old was only exiled instead of facing a harsher punishment, a stroke of luck. Hey? I want to go with you. Linlin, smiling brightly, bit her finger and expressed her desire to follow her parents. As long as you wait here. The young woman comforted her daughter, saying, you can eat as many snacks as you want from the backpack today. Hey? All of them. Linlin's eyes lit up with excitement when she heard she could eat all the snacks she wanted. Overjoyed, she immediately agreed, then I'll wait here. I'll wait for you to come back. Baron Charlotte, we must leave quickly. These waters are dangerous. The scruffy captain, worried about potential attacks from large sea kings, urgently reminded them. Right, we'll leave immediately. Though the couple felt reluctant, they steeled themselves and returned to the ship, looking back at their 5-year-old daughter. Linlin was a natural-born destroyer, and they could no longer manage her. Papa, Mama, have a safe trip. Goodbye. Goodbye. Thinking her parents were simply going on an errand and would return to pick her up soon, Linlin, unaware of the truth, smiled and waved happily as she watched the armed merchant ship slowly sail away. She was especially excited knowing she could eat all the snacks in her backpack, which was full of delicious treats. As the ship disappeared, El's towering figure approached, his wings flapping as he landed nearby. Hey? A person with wings! Linlin exclaimed in surprise when she saw him. She looked at his wings and his body, which was about the same size as hers, and blinked her large eyes in amazement. And you're as big as me. Big brother, are you an angel? Hello, little sister. El smiled as he looked at the innocent Linlin and asked, I'm not an angel. I was born with wings. Did you just arrive here? Yes, Papa and Mama went away and told me to wait for them here. Linlin replied happily, oblivious to her situation. She eagerly opened her backpack, searching for her snacks. Generously, she offered some to El. Big brother, I have lots of snacks. Do you want to eat some with me? Thank you. El didn't refuse. He gently patted Linlin's head and smiled, my name is El. Is your name Linlin? El Uni-san? Hee. Linlin giggled. Yes, I'm Charlotte Linlin. Here. Chapter 5, Monstrous Strength, Teaching Linlin. Glug, glug. By the shoreline, a 5-ton chubby girl sat down comfortably, pulling delicious pastries out of her backpack and sharing them with El, whom she had just met. With both hands grabbing the pastries, she stuffed them into her mouth, devouring them in a ravenous and unrefined manner. So sweet and delicious. After swallowing a sugary treat, the innocent Charlotte Linlin smiled happily, her eyes squinting with delight. You should enjoy the pastries slowly, Linlin. Eating too fast takes away the flavor. El remarked, tossing a piece of pastry small compared to his giant-sized body into his mouth, savoring the sweetness. Watching Linlin devour the treats, El chuckled, if you eat them all at once, there won't be any left. At just 5 years old, Linlin was still a child, her mind not yet fully developed. She was at an age where she loved to eat and play, but she couldn't control her monstrous strength, which explained why her parents couldn't manage her. Perhaps only someone like El, another natural-born monster, could handle her. Papa and Mama always say the same thing, but I can never stop myself from gobbling everything up, hee. Linlin giggled, biting her finger. Looking at the now empty backpack and the mess she'd made on the ground, Linlin scratched her head sheepishly. Oops, I think I ate too much and finished all the pastries. Sorry. No worries. I haven't had such delicious pastries in a long time, El said with a smile, patting Linlin's head as usual. Thanks for sharing them with me, Linlin. Hee, my family has lots of yummy treats. El Uni-san, will you come visit me at my house and play with me? Linlin asked, blinking her large eyes expectantly. The other kids around there are too scared to play with me. For some reason, Linlin felt a sense of warmth and closeness with El, whom she had just met. She liked being with this gentle and handsome big brother who was as big as she was. He didn't fear her, which made her very happy. Sure. I live around here, so if you have nowhere to go, you can always come to my place and play, El replied, smiling warmly. He didn't tell her the harsh truth that her parents had abandoned her. At 5 years old, Linlin wouldn't be able to accept such a reality. Telling her now would likely lead to disbelief or even trauma. It was better to let time gradually soften the truth. When she was older, she would naturally come to understand and eventually accept it. Wow! Linlin marveled at the waves. Giant fish, larger than the merchant ship that had just left, occasionally leapt out of the sea, leaving her wide-eyed in amazement. The fish here are so big. This is Elbaff, the land of giants. So naturally, the plants and animals here are much larger than usual, Elle explained with a gentle smile, patting her head. By the way, since you shared your pastries with me, how about I treat you to some grilled fish? After all, he hadn't had breakfast yet, and the small amount of snacks Linlin had offered wasn't nearly enough to satisfy his enormous appetite. Both of them, as natural-born monsters, had extraordinary digestive systems. They could even eat stones or steel without feeling uncomfortable. Their powerful stomach acids would break down anything and expel it easily. Grilled fish. Linlin's eyes lit up with excitement, and she stared at Elle with drooling anticipation. Really? Of course. Wait here, Linlin. Elle nodded with a smile and spread his wings, preparing to take off. Elle Unisan, your wings are so beautiful. And you can fly. I wish I had wings too. Linlin exclaimed as she watched Elle's black wings unfurl. Her childish curiosity got the better of her, and she reached out to grab his wings, pulling them in fascination. Why do you also have flames behind your head? Flap. Elle's black wings shook violently, slipping free from Linlin's hands. Slightly exasperated, Elle tapped her forehead lightly. You're too rough. In the future, when you're curious about something, don't just grab it. And definitely don't use so much strength, it's rude. Linlin had no idea just how powerful her unintentional strength was. Even adult giants would have trouble enduring her force. Thankfully, Elle was also a natural-born monster, with wings as tough as steel, impervious to weapons, and capable of withstanding her grip. Otherwise, if it had been another Lunarian, their wings would likely have been broken. Ouch, that hurt. Linlin rubbed her reddened forehead, her eyes welling up with tears as she looked at Elle in confusion. How is it that your strength is so strong, Elle Unisan, that it actually hurt me? At home, no matter how much trouble she caused or how angry her parents got, no amount of punishment ever hurt her. They could hit her with sticks, but it never fazed her. Yet Elle had managed to cause her pain with just a flick to her forehead. That's because I, like you, have natural strength. Elle chuckled, gently pinching Linlin's chubby cheeks, and explained seriously, Linlin, you need to understand that we are special. Our bodies are different from others. We're born with incredible strength, and our skin is as tough as steel. So, even if it feels like you are using no strength at all, you might still hurt the people around you. You could even put their lives at risk without meaning to. Really? Linlin blinked her large eyes in surprise, biting her finger as she recalled how, back at home, she often hurt people without intending to. She'd always tried to be gentle, but everyone around her seemed so fragile, like paper. If she pulled someone's arm lightly, they would cry out in pain, and their arm would break. If she gave them a little pat, they would go flying, coughing up blood. Because of this, the other children had become afraid of her and refused to play with her anymore. Yes, your strength is too great. It's like trying to pick up an ant to play with, but accidentally crushing it, Elle explained, having seen firsthand how Linlin, despite trying to be gentle with the pastries earlier, still crushed them in her grip before stuffing them into her mouth without a second thought. He could only imagine that Linlin's parents hardly dared to hug her, let alone let her hug them. Otherwise, they'd risk being suffocated or squeezed to death. In the worst case, a careless hug could leave them with shattered bones and serious injuries. I guess that's true. Linlin scratched her head and laughed sheepishly. The kids around her back home really were like fragile little ants, always getting hurt by her accidentally. Chapter 6, We're strong, so we have to be careful. Sizzle. By the shore, fierce flames blazed, generating intense heat that distorted the air and sent shivers down one's spine. Giant vines held several large fish, grilling them to a golden perfection and releasing an enticing aroma. For Linlin's sake, Elle took his time with breakfast today, unlike his usual rushed meals. After casually catching a few fish, larger than most ships, and quickly preparing them, he returned to his cave to grab some seasonings. He then controlled the flames precisely to roast the fish, making them perfectly flavorful. The scent of grilled fish filled the air, making Charlotte Linlin drool with anticipation. However, Elle's stock of seasonings was now completely depleted. Can't wait, hey? It's ready. Dig in. Elle smiled, cutting off a piece of fragrant grilled fish and handing it to Linlin. It's still hot, but for people like us, that won't be a problem. Is this magic? Linlin, sitting by the fire and drooling, blinked her large eyes, filled with curiosity about the strange vines and the ability to control flames. But before Elle could respond, Linlin forgot all about her question as a large piece of delicious grilled fish was placed right in front of her. Hee, thanks. I'm starting now. With her eyes gleaming, Linlin eagerly grabbed the steaming piece of grilled fish. She bit into it with gusto, devouring it without a second thought. The saying, haste makes waste, might apply to most people, but not to them. The freshly grilled fish was hot enough to burn an ordinary person, but for them, it was nothing. Mmm. So tasty, it's amazing. Though Linlin usually preferred sweets, she loved any delicious food. She quickly devoured the fish, oil dripping from her mouth, and even chewed up the bones, swallowing them whole without fear of choking. Once she finished, she looked at the remaining fish with hungry eyes. El Unisan, I want more. Take it slow, there's plenty, El chuckled, watching her. He too began devouring his share of the grilled fish. In no time, the two of them had easily finished off several massive grilled fish. All that remained were a few fish scales on the ground, no bones or scraps in sight. Burp, that was amazing. Linlin, satisfied, patted her round belly, letting out a burp of contentment. With a bright smile, she said, this is the first time I've eaten so much. Thank you, El Unisan. As long as I'm here, you can eat as much as you want, anytime, El replied with a smile. Really? That's wonderful. Linlin exclaimed with delight, her innocence shining through. El Unisan, when Papa and Mama come back, you should come home with us. Sure, if your parents agree, I'll come visit your home, El replied, smiling. Papa and Mama are really nice, they'll definitely agree, hee. Linlin giggled, full of naive optimism. Elle smiled softly but didn't shatter her innocent hopes. By the way, Linlin, let me show you a magic trick. An idea popped into Elle's mind, and he extended his right hand, curling his finger toward the ground. In a short moment, under Linlin's astonished gaze, a small green sprout grew from the earth, quickly developing into a full plant. It blossomed with colorful flowers, stunningly beautiful. Wow! Linlin's eyes sparkled as she watched the magical scene unfold. It's so pretty. Pointing to the flowers blooming on the plant, Elle smiled and said, these flowers are delicate. I want you to try picking a petal gently, without crushing it. This will help you learn to control your strength. Elle wasn't just trying to entertain her, he was giving Linlin a valuable lesson. He wanted her to better manage her overwhelming strength to avoid accidentally hurting others or causing destruction. Hey? That sounds hard. Linlin blinked her large eyes and stared at the delicate flowers. Each one was about the size of a fingernail. She grabbed one and tried to pull off a petal gently, but because of her large size and immense strength, she accidentally crushed several flowers in the process. After several failed attempts, she looked up at Elle with teary eyes, feeling frustrated. El Unisan, I've been really careful, but I still can't do it. I keep crushing the flowers. To control your strength and avoid hurting those around you, this is something you have to learn, Elle shrugged, a bit helpless. Your strength is too great. Just earlier, if it had been anyone else, you would have torn off their wings. I didn't mean to. Linlin mumbled, pouting as she lowered her head in shame. She had only been curious and wanted to touch his wings. I know, Linlin. You're a good kid, Elle reassured her, patting her head gently. But both you and I are special. We're different from ordinary people, so we need to be extra careful. Linlin, you wouldn't want to accidentally hurt your papa and mama when hugging them, right? As he spoke, Elle stomped his foot on the ground. For example, look. Boom. The earth trembled as the ground cracked open, creating a massive fissure that stretched toward the sea. Sea water surged in, filling the crack, a sight that would make anyone break into a cold sweat. Wow! That's amazing! Linlin's eyes lit up in wonder. She stood up and tried stomping the ground herself. Boom! The ground shook, and a large crater appeared, with spiderweb-like cracks spreading out from it. Rocks flew in all directions, though her impact wasn't as extreme as Elle's. Hey! Linlin tilted her head, looking down at the crater she created. Then she compared it to the massive fissure Elle had made, scratching her head in confusion. Hehe, I can't do that, can I? Linlin, you're already amazing. Look, with just a bit of force, we can crack the ground wide open. Elle said as he patted her head. In this short time together, he had come to understand that this future Emperor of the Sea was still an innocent child, filled with curiosity. She wasn't any different from other mischievous kids. She had a good heart. It was just that her terrifying strength made her a danger to those around her, a walking disaster without the right guidance. Unlike Elle, who had the self-discipline of a natural-born warrior, Linlin also suffered from a strange eating disorder that made her uncontrollable when she was hungry. A rampaging Linlin was a fearsome sight, beyond what most people could handle. But Elle was confident he could control her. After all, she was still a child. Looking at the innocent Linlin in front of him, Elle patiently guided her. Until you can fully control your strength, you shouldn't touch others so casually. Understand? For natural-born monsters like them, mastering their strength wasn't easy. Sometimes, just a moment of excitement or an unconscious movement could result in unintended force. While it might seem like nothing to them, it could be disastrous for others. For example, Elle could casually give someone a tap without even using a fraction of his strength, but for an ordinary person or even a battle-hardened giant warrior it could mean broken bones or worse. During his time on the deserted island in the Calm Belt, Elle had trained hard to gradually adjust to his rapidly growing strength. I'll try my best. Linlin nodded enthusiastically. She had never intended to hurt anyone, and her parents hadn't hugged her in a long time, likely out of fear of her strength. Thinking of this, Charlotte Linlin became more determined than ever to control her strength and carefully began practicing by picking the flower petals in front of her. Chapter 7, News about Holy Mother. Whoosh! A cold wind howled as snowflakes began to fall from the sky. It had been 3 days since Charlotte Linlin had arrived. During this time, Elle mostly stayed by the shore, occasionally returning to the village to consult the 2 elders, Yaril and Joril, for training advice. He maintained a consistent routine, spending time training, helping Linlin with strength control exercises, and sometimes just playing with her. Time passed quickly. Additionally, Gerd, a giant girl who was close to Elle, would occasionally visit. When Elle was busy training, she would play with Linlin. Meanwhile, the Holy Mother Carmel had been keeping a close eye on Elle, fascinated by his identity as a Lunarian survivor. She had also become keenly interested in Linlin and made several attempts to lure her to the sheep's house. However, Elle had firmly refused each time. It's snowing. Are you cold, Linlin? Elle asked with a smile, noticing Linlin was only wearing a floral dress. Of course, neither of them could actually feel the cold. They were, after all, monsters with superhuman constitutions. This was why Linlin's parents hadn't bothered dressing her in winter clothing after they arrived in this snowy region. Hehe, not at all. Linlin, who was having a great time playing with Elle, was especially happy. Finally, she had found someone who wasn't afraid of her strength and could play without getting hurt. Plus, there was an endless supply of grilled fish and sea king meat, making her feel completely satisfied. Her chubby face beamed with joy. However, as Linlin gazed out at the rolling waves of the sea, she bit her finger in confusion. But why haven't Papa and Mama come back yet? Maybe they got held up by something, Elle replied with a smile, brushing snowflakes off Linlin's shoulders. He patted her head gently and said, I'm going to prepare lunch. I'll go hunt a few beasts, be a good girl and wait for me here. We'll have roasted meat later. Hey? Roasted meat? Linlin's eyes lit up at the mention of food, and she began drooling. She nodded excitedly, okay. Elle, Linlin. I'm here. At that moment, a cheerful voice echoed in the distance. Gerd came running over with a giant basket in her hands. I brought some food for you. It's the best semla. For the past 3 days, Gerd had often come to the shore looking for Elle, so she had naturally become acquainted with Linlin. At first, the giant girl had been shocked to see Linlin. Despite her chubby, harmless appearance, Linlin had strength far exceeding Gerd's, even as a giant. She was undeniably a natural-born monster, just like Elle. But with Elle's guidance, the 2 girls quickly became friends. After several days of training, Linlin had also started to gain better control of her strength. And since Gerd was a giant, unlike other children from different races, and with Elle keeping an eye on them, they were able to play together without too much risk of injury. Really? Thank you so much, Gerd. Linlin's eyes gleamed, and she drooled at the thought of more delicious food. The little glutton was overjoyed. Gerd, aren't you supposed to be training with Hatruden and the others? Elle asked with a raised eyebrow. Considering the fact that the famous giant pirate leaders Blue Ogre Dori and Red Ogre Bragi were still alive and respected, Elle had never intended to compete for the position of the next leader of the giant pirates. Instead, his plan was to establish his own kingdom, Toto land, a powerful and unprecedented nation gathering all the races of the world. From there, he would build a foundation, expand his territory, and accumulate strength to challenge the world government's dominance, which had ruled the seas for centuries. Of course, he couldn't overlook the giant's powerful combat capabilities. With his strong ties to Elbaff, recruiting giants as part of his forces in the future wouldn't be difficult. Not to mention that Gerd liked to stick close to him, and even Hatruden, the promising young giant being mentored by the elders, had long since submitted to Elle and considered him a leader. I snuck out, Gerd said with a grin, winking playfully at Elle as she handed him the basket. Here. Wow. Linlin eagerly took the basket from Gerd. Her eyes sparkled as she looked inside at the delicious, fragrant semla, an Elbaff specialty. She began drooling again. This is the best food in Elbaff semla, Linlin. Gerd said proudly, hands on her hips. Linlin, delighted, couldn't stop smiling. Thank you so much, Gerd. Let's eat together. Elle said with a smile. He didn't give much thought to Gerd's fondness for him. Giants had long lifespans, often living over 300 years. Though Gerd appeared young, like the 5-year-old Charlotte Linlin, she was actually 3 to 4 years older than Elle and already 12 years old. While she wasn't old enough to experience romantic feelings yet, constantly being around rough and wild kids like Hatruden naturally made her gravitate toward Elle. Gulp. This is so delicious. The three of them feasted on the semla, quickly finishing off everything in the basket. Even so, Linlin still looked a bit unsatisfied. If you like it, I'll bring more next time, Gerd said cheerfully. Linlin was overjoyed. Hee, thank you. You're the best, Gerd. By the way, Elle. Gerd said, turning to him. I heard from Moimo that Sister Carmel left early this morning with about a dozen children. Apparently, some wealthy and reputable families contacted her, saying they wanted to adopt a few of them. Oh. Elle raised an eyebrow. He hadn't been back to the village for a few days. So, that old woman had finally made her move? Yes, she took Longarm Tribe's Tane, Longleg Tribe's Rock, Mink Tribe's Moss, Fishmen Tribe's Jan, and the others. Gerd continued. Hearing this, Elle stood up, looking out toward the sea with a light smile. You two wait here, I'll go check things out. For Carmel to take so many children from special races at once, it was clear she planned to sell them to the world government. Elle wasn't about to let her succeed. And with Linlin now under his care, there was no reason to keep that troublesome old woman around any longer. Elle, you're not planning to do something bad, are you? Gerd asked, tilting her head and blinking her big eyes. My parents say it's a good thing if someone's willing to adopt those kids. It is a good thing, I'm just going to check on them, Elle smiled reassuringly. Without wasting any time, he asked Gerd to look after Linlin and quickly headed back to the village. Under the surprised gazes of the giants, he collected a large bag of assorted fruits and then spread his wings, flying off into the distance. Chapter 8, Scipio and Carmel. Whimper. Whimper. Sister, why? Weren't you going to find families to adopt us? Why are we locked in cages? Wah, I don't want to go. Sister, please save me. Please, sister, let me out. I promise I won't be naughty anymore. On a deserted island near Elbaff, a ship flying the world government's flag was docked at the shore. A group of children, aged from a few years old to their early teens, huddled in cages, crying and struggling. They came from various races, including humans, the Longarm tribe, the Longleg tribe, and minks. They were being guarded by CP agents, dressed in suits and armed with guns. Shut up, you brats! Not far away, Sister Carmel stood holding a large suitcase, alongside a few masked figures also dressed in suits. Her usual kind and gentle facade had vanished, replaced with a sneer as she looked at the children she had just sold to the world government with disgust. Spitting out her cigarette, Carmel made no effort to hide her true feelings, glaring at the children with loathing. I've put up with you long enough. Always making a fuss. If you weren't worth some money, I'd have choked the life out of you worthless trash long ago. Sister. The children, who had once respected and relied on her, now stared at her in shock and disbelief. Their eyes were wide with tears as they saw her demonic expression, so different from the loving nun they had known. There's still one more prized lamb left. Carmel licked her lips, eyes gleaming with greed and excitement. Once I seal this last deal, I'll never have to face you brats again. I can retire in comfort. A prized lamb. Hearing this, the leader of the CP0 agents, dressed in a white suit and wearing a mask, raised an eyebrow. Curious, he looked at Carmel and asked in a deep voice, "Mountain Witch, are you referring to that kid with Lunarian and giant blood? If we let him continue unchecked, that brat could become a huge threat." Carmel had previously sold valuable information to the world government at a high price. About half a year ago, she had informed them that a half-giant with Lunarian blood had appeared in Elbaff, a monster invulnerable to weapons with immense strength. It was also rumored that he possessed a rare Zoan mythical beast ability. This news was of great importance to CP0, but Elbaff, being the homeland of the giants and the world's strongest nation, was too sensitive a place to infiltrate. The world government had recently mended its strained relationship with the giants, thanks to a staged play by Carmel. As a result, several giant warriors had joined the navy, and the world government didn't want to jeopardize that fragile peace by provoking the giants. Even though they knew a surviving member of the Lunarian race, heavily sought by the world government, was hiding in Elbaff, they couldn't simply send the navy or CP agents in to capture him without risking the giants' wrath. Carmel, greedy for more than the 1 billion berries bounty, had been trying to lure the boy out so the world government could capture him. However, the Lunarian boy seemed far more perceptive than most children and had evaded every trap she set. His strength and ability to fly, combined with the need to avoid alerting the giants, made him impossible to capture by force. The CP0 agents had been struggling to come up with a plan. "Not sure if it's your luck or mine," Carmel cackled. "Recently, another problem child arrived in Elbaff. Though she's human, her size is like that of a small giant, just like the Lunarian giant hybrid you're interested in. She's also a natural-born monster. I saw her on the shore a few days ago. She stomped the ground and cracked it wide open. Then, she swatted a boar bigger than a giant to death with a single slap. And she's only 5 years old." Over the past 3 days, Carmel had taken notice of Charlotte Linlin, and through subtle inquiries from Gerd, she learned that the girl was another natural-born monster like Elle. Watching Linlin's overwhelming strength had left her both shocked and elated. But Carmel was bitter that Elle had gotten to Linlin first, stealing her prize. She had tried multiple times to convince Elle to hand the girl over to her, but he had firmly refused. "What?" The CP0 agent's eyes widened in disbelief. He trusted that Carmel wasn't lying after all. It would be foolish to try to cheat the world government out of money. But a 5-year-old with such monstrous power? What kind of potential did she have? "Unfortunately, I was too late. That Lunarian brat snatched her away from me," Carmel growled, her voice filled with frustration. But then her expression turned vicious, and she grinned wickedly. "Give me a little more time, and I'll definitely lure them both out." "Is that so?" The CP0 officer nodded. "We'll see what you can do. If such a natural-born monster really existed, it would be worth paying extra to acquire her. With proper training, she could become a Navy Admiral or even a Fleet Admiral. Or, if raised by CP, she could be the strongest shield to protect the Celestial Dragons. But the price will need to double," Carmel demanded, seizing the opportunity. "After all, that's the best merchandise I've ever come across in my entire career." "I'll see what I can arrange with the higher UPS," the agent replied. "Wait, what's that?" Another agent suddenly shouted. "Is that an angel with wings?" "No, his wings are black. He's flying toward us." The shout caused a stir among the agents, who pointed toward the distant sky in shock. Carmel and the CP0 agents quickly turned their heads to look. "That's..." The CP0 leaders gasped as they saw a figure rapidly approaching. It was a boy with black wings, resembling a fallen angel from myth, and his body was as large as that of a giant child. "Yes, it's him, Quetzalcoatl." Carmel gasped, startled at first, but then her shock turned to excitement. She grabbed the CP0 agent, nearly screaming, "I lured him here. You better pay me, you can't back out now. Elle, help us. We've been tricked." Carmel's demeanor suddenly shifted as if she were performing a complete face change. She threw the suitcase aside and began waving her arms frantically toward Elle, who was rapidly approaching. "These children have been locked up by them. she screamed, feigning desperation. Chapter 9, No Effect. Whoosh! Gusts of wind whipped across the shore as L, wings black as night, swooped down like a fallen angel from legend, moving at incredible speed. He quickly arrived at the island's coast, where Carmel was making her deal with the world government. L had already scouted this remote island near Elbaff. L, stop them quickly. Carmel rushed forward, gripping L's clothes with feigned desperation. They're human traffickers. We've been deceived, and the children have been captured by them. The children locked in cages looked on in shock. Had Sister Carmel been tricked? Nevertheless, they saw L as their savior, and their cries for help echoed through the air. L, boss, save us. These bad people locked us up. The children knew all too well how strong L was. Even adult giant warriors couldn't match his strength. He could lift them effortlessly and toss them into the air like ragdolls. They were sure he could defeat the villains who had captured them. Grey hair, black wings, flames at the back of his head. It really is the legendary Lunarian. It's the first time I've seen one. He doesn't look like the rumors his skin isn't brown. Is it because he's a giant hybrid? This is the cursed race the world government has placed a bounty on. We can't let him escape. Meanwhile, the CP agents had drawn their guns and cannons, aiming them at L. Their eyes were filled with caution and hostility. We've got quite the dangerous one here, the CP0 officer in charge remarked coldly, ignoring Carmel's charade. He fixed his gaze on L and said, the world government received intelligence about a Lunarian hiding in Elbaff, but because it's the land of the giants, we couldn't arrest you. I didn't expect you to come to us willingly. To the CP0 agent, L was clearly formidable, but they were CP0 far more powerful than ordinary CP agents. As long as they could prevent him from flying away, capturing him wasn't impossible. Oh, is that so? L chuckled lightly, ignoring the CP0 agents. He looked down at Carmel, her face full of fake urgency, and smiled. Sister, I've been meaning to have a heart-to-heart talk with you. Even now, Carmel was putting on an act, fearing that if CP0 failed to capture him, he'd return to Elbaff, potentially exposing her secret life as a human trafficker. It was understandable Carmel had played the role of Holy Mother for years, fooling countless people. What? Carmel faltered, surprised. The next moment, L, his enormous hand like that of a small giant, grabbed her by the neck and lifted her into the air. L, what are you doing? Carmel's face twisted in pain as L's grip tightened, and she struggled desperately. That's enough acting. L's face remained indifferent, his voice dripping with mockery. Did you really think I didn't know you sold these children to the world government, Mountain Witch? What? Carmel's face turned pale, while the CP0 agents stood in stunned silence. They hadn't expected that Carmel's true identity had already been exposed. She thrashed wildly, denying his words. What are you talking about? Let me go. You thought you could sell me and Linlin to the world government, then retire in peace. L sneered, his eyes cold. Sorry, but hell is your real retirement plan. You knew. Carmel's expression contorted as she realized her cover was blown. No longer bothering to pretend, she screamed at the CP0 agents. What are you waiting for? Save me. Crack. Before the CP0 agents could react, L's grip tightened mercilessly. Ah! Carmel's scream was cut short as her bones shattered. She didn't even have time to activate her soul fruit powers before her body was crushed into a bloody pulp. Her head lolled to the side, eyes wide in disbelief as she died. Blood spilled onto the ground in a gruesome display, sending shivers down the spines of everyone watching. Sister. L, he, killed Sister Carmel. The children in the cages were stunned, their eyes wide with terror. None of them had expected that the normally kind L would so brutally kill Sister Carmel. They turned pale with fear and began crying uncontrollably. Carmel, the CP0 officer leading the operation, was shocked and furious. He hadn't expected L to act so decisively. Before he could intervene, Carmel was dead. They still hadn't drawn the other monster out, and now they had lost a valuable asset. Without hesitation, the CP0 officer charged forward, shouting, Shave! Finger gun, Orin! Yellow Lotus! In an instant, the CP0 officer was in front of L. His index finger turned pitch black, coated in armament haki, and he struck with rapid, bullet-like jabs aimed at L's body. What? But to his horror, L's body was as hard as steel. No matter how many times he struck with his haki-infused attacks, he couldn't pierce L's skin. He was starting to understand just how terrifying L's invulnerability truly was. L stood there, completely defenseless, yet his body couldn't be harmed. "Are you scratching an itch?" L asked coldly. Without even moving, he brought his foot down hard. Boom! The ground trembled and collapsed beneath him, causing many of the CP agents to lose their footing and crash to the ground, bleeding from their injuries. Swish, swish. Green sprouts erupted from the earth, transforming into massive vines that whipped through the air like spears, aiming to impale the CP0 officer. The CP0 officer's face twisted in shock as he retreated. "Iron body, go!" Strength. At the same moment, 2 other CP0 agents sprang into action, charging at L with their bodies hardened like steel through their iron body technique, throwing powerful punches toward him. "You're courting death." L's expression remained cold, his eyes flashing with a blood-red gleam. Thanks to his extraordinary observation haki, he had already predicted their movements. Clenching his fists, he swung them with devastating force. Boom! Boom! In an instant, both agents were sent flying like cannonballs, their bodies crashing violently into a hillside in the distance. Boom! Boom! What? Chapter 10, Conqueror's Haki, Quetzalcoatl's Power. Laksama. Mox-sama. Damn it, this monster! Everyone, fire! Kill him! In an instant, the CP agents were stunned, unable to believe their eyes. L had effortlessly sent 2 CP0 agents flying. Before they could react, the remaining agents hastily raised their firearms, aiming at him and pulling the triggers without hesitation. Bang! Bang! Gunshots rang out, and a barrage of bullets shot towards L. However, the bullets merely bounced off his steel-like skin, impenetrable as an iron fortress. The deformed bullets deflected, utterly incapable of causing him any harm. Boom! Boom! At the same time, a few rockets were launched, exploding in bright bursts of fire and smoke. Roar! A deafening beastly roar echoed through the air, accompanied by a terrifying shockwave and intense wind pressure that swept across the area. Whoosh, whoosh! The fierce winds, carrying debris and rocks, surged across the battlefield. The CP agents and the frightened children from the sheep's house collapsed one by one, their eyes rolling back as they foamed at the mouth, falling unconscious. This is Conqueror's Haki. CP0 squad leader Knockgates was horrified. His eyes widened as he witnessed the monstrous figure rising from the billowing smoke into the sky. Cold sweat dripped down his face as he stammered, "What is that creature?" Whoosh! The winds continued to howl, making it hard to keep one's eyes open. The massive creature looming in the sky darkened the blue heavens. Its head resembled that of a serpent, with fierce, golden, slit-pupil eyes radiating intimidation. The crown of feathers on its head, resembling a feathered helmet with horns, exuded an aura of majesty and power. Behind the fearsome serpent's head, flames blazed fiercely. Its enormous body, over 100 meters long, was covered in green scales and adorned with magnificent feathers, crackling with arcs of lightning. The creature possessed 2 pairs of wings, one set black, the other greenish-blue. It soared high into the sky, glaring down at the scene below. It was the mythical Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. The sight was awe-inspiring. "What now?" L's cold, youthful voice echoed from above as his snake-like eyes locked onto the CP0 squad leader. "Weren't you, the loyal dog of the celestial dragons, eager to capture me?" Born a monster, L was destined to stand at the peak of the world. Though the CP0 agents were not weak, they were no match for him. His strength had already surpassed even the mightiest of giant warriors. A single strike from him could gravely injure, if not kill, a Navy Vice Admiral. Unlike Charlotte Linlin, who had immense strength and incredible defense but lacked training and control, L had been fighting for his life since birth. While other children were just learning to walk and talk, L was being trained by his parents to survive, engaging in battles from a young age. When his parents were killed, it triggered the awakening of his conqueror's haki and his memories from a past life. Through rigorous self-discipline, L had honed his observation and conqueror's haki daily. While Linlin was a natural-born monster, she was still a mutated human. L, however, not only had years of additional experience but also the combined bloodlines of the Lunarian and giant races. His already monstrous physique had been further enhanced by his mythical Zoan devil fruit, Quetzalcoatl, steadily amplifying his strength over time. In the past half-year, under the guidance of the giant elders Yarl and Jorl, El had refined his abilities even further. Although he had yet to master the giant's ultimate combat techniques, his human form alone possessed extraordinary combat prowess. The difference between Linlin and El was as vast as night and day. Whoosh! Without hesitation, El, now in his feathered serpent form, locked onto the CP-0 squad leader and launched his attack. His massive, lightning-imbued wings flapped, unleashing a powerful gust of wind. Swish, swish. Massive, visible wind blades cut through the air, mercilessly slashing down upon the ground. Boom, boom. The earth was torn apart, deep and terrifying gouges left in its wake. The CP-0 squad leader, wide-eyed with terror, dodged frantically, relying on his observation haki to predict the attacks. Ah! A chilling scream echoed as a nearby hill, standing over 10 meters tall, was cleaved in half by the wind blades. The two CP-0 agents who had barely managed to stand after being severely injured were unable to dodge in time. Despite their earlier use of iron body, a technique that made their bodies as hard as steel, they were no match for El's overwhelming power. The agents, already gravely injured with broken ribs and blood pouring from their wounds, were sliced clean in two by the wind blades. Their bodies collapsed, blood splattering everywhere. "Don't get cocky, you bastard!" CP-0 squad leader Gates shot into the air, his right leg tearing through the air as he unleashed a devastating kick. Tempest kick, Hyobi. Storm leg. Swish. A massive, crescent-shaped green energy slash, spanning several dozen meters, flew straight at the colossal feathered serpent in the sky. Roar. However, the massive Quetzalcoatl roared defiantly. Without bothering to dodge, it flapped its forewings and charged downward with incredible speed. Boom. The feathered serpent collided directly with the energy slash. Its scales, tougher than steel, effortlessly deflected the attack. The slash ricocheted off its body and crashed into the distant sea, creating a massive splash and leaving a deep gouge in the water before the ocean gradually returned to normal. The feathered serpent's scales remained completely unharmed, not a scratch to be seen. Its unstoppable power left everyone trembling. Shave. Witnessing this, Gates paled in fear. Without a second thought, he turned and sprinted away, trying to flee. This Lunarian monster was far beyond what he could handle. He needed to report this to the world government immediately. At this rate, if El were left unchecked, he would grow into a catastrophe that could threaten the very core of the world government. Unfortunately for Gates, even his Den Mushi, his only means of communication, had been knocked out by El's earlier conqueror's haki. There was no way to call for help. Trying to escape. The massive feathered serpent landed on the ground, its observation haki already locking onto Gates, reading his every move. El's voice was laced with scorn as he coldly remarked, "Naive. Do you really think you can get away?" Deep Forest Emergence. Chapter 11, Life Return, Dice Fruit. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the surrounding plants and vegetation seemed to come alive. Bushes and weeds grew rapidly, transforming into massive tree trunks and vines, twisting like sentient serpents as they surged toward Gates. What? Gates' expression changed as he dodged and maneuvered frantically. In the next moment, he leaped high into the air, delivering a powerful kick. Tempest kick, ran, riot. Swish. 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 A series of pale green slashes cut through the air, slicing apart the rapidly growing trees and vines that attacked him. Moonwalk. Tap, tap. Without hesitation, Gates used his ability to step on the air and shot upward, attempting to escape into the sky. However, the vines and trees continued to grow at an astonishing rate, relentlessly pursuing him and blocking his path. Damn it! It was as if the enemy could predict his every move, knowing exactly where he would go next. Wherever he tried to escape, more trees and vines sprouted ahead, cutting off his retreat. Soon, countless vines coiled around him like venomous snakes, closing in without mercy. Whoosh! Gates' face twisted in horror as his right foot was suddenly caught by several vines that shot out unexpectedly. Before he could react, a mass of vines surged toward him, completely engulfing and binding him tightly. Swish, swish. Sharp, spear-like tips of the vines surrounded him on all sides, hovering just inches away from his body. One wrong move, and these plants would pierce him from every angle, turning him into a pincushion. He could feel the chilling fear creeping over him. "I've got you!" The enormous Quetzalcoatl swooped down in an instant, its razor-sharp fangs gleaming menacingly as it glared down at Gates, radiating an overwhelming sense of pressure. The air was thick with dread as Gates trembled under the beast's terrifying gaze. "Curse you!" Gates struggled desperately, but the vines were far stronger than ordinary plants, holding him fast. He was horrified. Was this truly a 9-year-old child? This was a complete monster. "Your resistance is futile." The giant creature began to shrink, reverting back to its human form, but even in his human form, L's 5-meter-tall figure loomed over Gates like an unscalable mountain. In Gates' panicked gaze, L reached out with one massive hand, pressing it against his head. Using his observation haki, L activated his unique power, instantly reading Gates' memories. "Ah, so this is the 6 powers? Not bad." L closed his eyes briefly and chuckled. "But the life return technique, now that's something worth looking into." From the start, L had no intention of killing the CP0 squad leader right away. He had spared him because someone of Gates' rank likely had mastery over both the 6 powers and haki. Moreover, Gates had likely trained in life return, a rare technique said to allow full control over one's body by channeling consciousness. To a monster like L, the 6 powers weren't particularly impressive. Useful, but nothing game-changing. However, the secret of life return, the ability to fully control one's body, was invaluable. If mastered, it would allow L to control even his internal organs, greatly increasing his defense and unlocking his hidden potential. "By the way, thanks for delivering that devil fruit straight to me." L grinned. From Gates' memories, L had learned that the world government ship carried a devil fruit, found by CP operatives in the New World and being transported to Mary Gosa. But now, it was about to become L's prize. "What?" Gates' pupils shrank in shock. Cold sweat dripped down his face as he stared in terror at L. "What have you done to me? How do you know about the 6 powers, and the devil fruit?" The fact that L knew all this was terrifying. Had this monster somehow read his memories with a special ability? "I'm not interested in explaining things to my enemies. Feel free to guess about it in hell." L sneered, turning away from Gates with a snap of his fingers, his voice dripping with cold malice. "All dogs of the world government deserve to die. SHHH, SHHH. In the next instant, the sharp, spear-like vines surrounding Gates shot forward all at once. Armament haki, iron body. Gates, unwilling to die without a fight, coated himself in armament haki, reinforcing his body as he struggled to break free from the vines. But L had already anticipated his resistance. Crackle, crackle. Without turning back, L's body crackled with electricity. Visible currents of lightning surged through the vines, rushing toward Gates. In an instant, the electricity coursed through his body, paralyzing him. His hair stood on end as his body was charred black by the intense shock, leaving him writhing in unbearable pain. SHHH. 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 Ah! With a series of sickening sounds and a final, agonized scream, the CP0 squad leader was pierced from every angle, reduced to a bloodied, mangled corpse. His body was left in a state too gruesome to describe. And it wasn't just Gates. Every CP agent who had fallen unconscious from the earlier Conqueror's haki suffered the same fate. One by one, they were impaled by the sharp vines, their blood staining the ground. For years, L had barely survived, narrowly avoiding the same fate as Kaido's right-hand man, King, another survivor of the Lunarian race. If things had gone differently, L would have been captured, experimented on, and tortured, treated like a lab rat in one of the world government's inhumane experiments. And ultimately, his parents had been killed because of the world government. There was no way L would show mercy to the world government's lackeys. Swish! After dealing with the CP agents, L opened the backpack he had brought, which was filled with various fruits. He knew that Carmel had possessed the soul fruit and had no intention of wasting such a powerful ability. It was said that when a devil fruit user died, their ability would randomly reappear in another fruit nearby. L wanted to see if he could recover the soul fruit ability by checking the fruits he had brought. Looks like no luck this time. A short while later, L looked at the pile of fruits: bananas, apples, mangoes, pomegranates, but none had changed. Still, L wasn't too disappointed. He hadn't expected much to begin with. But to leave no stone unturned, he spent the rest of the afternoon searching the island thoroughly, even inspecting the world government ship. Only as the sun began to set did he finally give up. "Oh well, no big deal. I still got something out of this." El shrugged, a smile crossing his face as he glanced at the setting sun. The paramecia-type dice fruit, hey? Not bad at all. El, never one to waste food, quickly ate the fruits he had brought. He also took Carmel's suitcase filled with berries, the devil fruit he had found on the ship, and even a pair of sea prism stone handcuffs, stuffing them all into a sack. Additionally, from reading Carmel's memories earlier, El had already discovered the location of her hidden treasure. The mountain which had left him with quite a pleasant surprise. Vote, comments, and leave a review. Please support this fanfic. Thank you. Also, there's already more chapters in Patreon. You can read up to chapter 61. Check it out. Patreon.com/Bleem. 50 advanced chapters. Chapter 12, Exposing the Holy Mother's Deeds. Roar. Elbaff. A beastly roar echoed across the sky, startling many of the giants and the children from the sheep's house. A massive creature, over 100 meters long, soared toward them, leaving them in awe. "Don't worry, it's me, El," came a familiar voice from the enormous figure. "Hey? El? Is that the legendary Quetzalcoatl? Is that El's power? It's the first time I've seen it." Hearing El's familiar voice, the once alert giant warriors, who had drawn their weapons, relaxed and stared in disbelief at the awe-inspiring creature. With a series of loud thuds, several large iron cages were gently placed on the ground. Inside were the children from the sheep's house, unconscious and still dazed from being knocked out by El's conqueror's haki. Isn't that Moss? Jin? Rock? Tane? What's going on? Didn't Carmel say she was sending them to good homes? The giant warriors quickly gathered, recognizing the children inside the cages. These were familiar faces, often seen causing mischief around the village. Although they caused trouble, the giants often turned a blind eye out of respect for Sister Carmel, the Holy Mother. El, what's the meaning of this? The giant elders, Mountain Beard, Yarl, and Waterfall Beard, Jorl, approached, drawn by the commotion. They looked up at the massive Quetzalcoatl in surprise, their faces turning solemn. "This is what happened, elders." El, now back in his human form, descended gracefully to the ground in front of them. "I heard from Gerd that Sister Carmel planned to send these children to be adopted today, but something felt off," El said seriously. "So I went to investigate the nearby island. What I found was that she wasn't sending them to good families at all. She sold these talented children to the world government." "What? Impossible. Are you joking? That's not funny at all. El, do you understand what you're saying? Sister Carmel is the Holy Mother. That's right, she would never betray us for money and cooperate with the world government." The gathered giant warriors were stunned, shouting in disbelief. Some, furious, began hurling accusations at El. "Quiet, everyone." Mountain Beard raised his hand, signaling for calm. He glanced at the children inside the cages, noticing their pale faces and terrified expressions, even in their unconscious state. Frowning, he turned back to El and said, "I trust you're not the type to make such serious claims lightly, but this is a grave accusation. It's hard to believe." Waterfall Beard, stroking his beard, looked conflicted. His voice was grave as he asked, "Do you have any evidence, El? Where is Sister Carmel?" Without hesitation, El responded, "I'm sorry, but as a soul fruit user, she could have caused trouble if left alive. To prevent any complications, I killed her." "What? You bastard! Unforgivable! What did you do to the sister?" Hearing that El had killed Sister Carmel, the giant warriors were thrown into a fury. They stared at El, both shocked and enraged. Many of them, especially former members of the giant warrior pirates, had been saved from execution by Carmel and were deeply grateful to her. Their anger surged, and some instinctively moved to attack El. "Stop! Everyone calm down!" Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard shouted, their voices filled with authority. "Mountain Beard, Waterfall Beard! Elders, this isn't just a childish prank. Sister Carmel saved our lives. She's revered as the Holy Mother across the world. How could she ever sell children to the world government?" The former warriors of the giant warrior pirates, who owed their lives to Carmel, were visibly emotional. Though they dared not defy the orders of the two elder giants, they clenched their fists in frustration, glaring at El with resentment. The sister had earned worldwide respect as the Holy Mother. She had spent her life helping orphans and troubled children, nurturing them and sending them to good families. The notion that she would trade children like a trafficker and then be killed by Elle was outrageous and couldn't simply be brushed aside. Elle, I believe you wouldn't lie, Mountain Beard said, looking at Elle with a pained expression. But this is too extreme. We've known Sister Carmel for years and have observed her closely, Waterfall Beard added sternly. We've never seen anything suspicious in her behavior. There must be a misunderstanding. More experienced and less emotionally driven than the other giant warriors, the two elders chose to remain calm. After all, Elle had giant blood in his veins and had no personal grudge against Carmel, so they believed there must be more to the story. However, the fact that Elle had acted so decisively in killing someone as revered as Carmel was not something that could be taken lightly. Elders, you know I wouldn't act recklessly without proof, Elle said confidently, unfazed by their doubt. Reaching into the bag slung over his shoulder, Elle pulled out a large stack of documents and handed them to the two elders. These are the documents I found on the world government ship, Elle explained. They contain personal information about Carmel and records of her previous dealings with the world government, including a list of children she planned to sell this time. Once the children wake up, you can also question them. They saw the real face of the Holy Mother themselves. In addition, I found a hidden compartment under Carmel's bed. Inside were detailed records of her dealings with the world government over the years, as well as information on all the children she sold in the past. I think all this evidence will be more than enough to reveal the truth. What? Chapter 13, The Giant's Anger, Soul Fruit. The Mountain Witch. In Elbaff village, Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard took the documents Elle handed over and carefully read through them. Their expressions shifted, darkening with disbelief. Carmel, she's that notorious child trafficker from the underworld. Indeed, the name Mountain Witch was infamous in the dark world. For decades, she had specialized in trafficking children, using deception and kidnapping to capture countless youngsters. Her actions had earned her the hatred of many. Even these two elder giants, who had long resided in Elbaff, had heard of her notorious reputation. These documents. They're real transaction records with the world government. Before long, the giant warriors summoned the children from the sheep's house. They pried open Sister Carmel's bedroom door, which she always kept locked to prevent the mischievous children from entering. As they searched under the bed, they found a hidden compartment containing a locked iron box. The giants broke the lock, revealing records of Carmel's dealings with the world government and information about the children she had sold. It was clear she had kept these records as leverage in case the world government ever turned on her. Damn it! Were we deceived? No doubt about it. I remember all these children. I can't believe she sold them to the world government. Unbelievable. But wasn't Sister Carmel the Holy Mother? Why would she do this? She risked her life to save us from being executed by the Navy back then. No. I can't believe it. Faced with the evidence, some of the giant warriors began to change their stance, realizing they had been deceived by Carmel. Their fury grew, yet those who had been saved from execution by her still couldn't accept the truth, clutching their heads in disbelief. Darcy, Erlin, let me clear up your doubts, Elle said calmly, observing the giant warriors who had always respected and been grateful to Carmel. Without anger, he crossed his arms and continued, before I killed Carmel, I discovered a shocking truth. Back then, when she stopped the Navy from publicly executing members of the giant warrior pirates, it was all part of a scheme crafted by the world government and her. It was a staged act to gain the favor of the giants and eventually exploit their strength. What? Is that true? That event was a conspiracy by the world government. Hearing this revelation, all the giants, including Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard, were left stunned. Their disbelief was palpable. You two elders were once renowned figures on the seas, Elle said, looking at Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard. I'm sure you've dealt with the world government and the Navy before. You know how devious and cunning they are. Some things just don't add up. Given their usual arrogance, would the world government really release captured pirates based on the words of a mere nun? Doing so would make them look weak in front of the world. Not long after that incident, the first giant Navy Vice Admiral, John Giant, emerged, and guess who played a key role in making that happen? It was Carmel, the so-called Holy Mother, who was used by the world government to help recruit giants into their ranks. Afterward, more and more giant warriors began to join the Navy. Boom! Elle's words landed like a bombshell. The revelation left the giant warriors reeling. Even Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard were visibly shaken, their fists clenching in rage as veins bulged, fury boiling inside them. Damn the world government, damn Carmel. So we've been played by those bastards all along. This is unforgivable. Meanwhile, at the edge of the forest near the coast. Don't run too far, Linlin. Gerd, look what I found. Linlin came running back, excitedly showing her giant friend Gerd what she had found. In her hands was a strange fruit, about the size of a thumb, which she presented proudly. Hey! Gerd's eyes widened as she looked at the fruit in Linlin's hands. It had a peculiar, swirling pattern on its surface and looked unlike any fruit she had seen before. I've never seen a fruit like that before. Had El been there, he would have been shocked. The strange fruit that Linlin had found looked exactly like the soul fruit from Carmel's memories. Despite El's earlier attempt to retrieve it, the fruit had apparently regenerated here and was now in Linlin's hands. This fruit looks so pretty. It must be delicious. Linlin said, her eyes shining. She smiled happily and added, let's eat it together, Gerd. Gerd hesitated, remembering how the elders had always warned them not to eat unfamiliar fruits. But as she stared at the strange fruit, she couldn't help but feel drawn to it, as though it had some mysterious power calling out to her. Before Gerd could fully decide, Linlin had already split the fruit in half and stuffed one piece into her mouth. Hee, don't hesitate, let's share it. Despite her usual gluttony, Linlin was always generous when it came to sharing with her friends. Gerd's eyes widened as Linlin handed her the other half. Not wanting to disappoint her friend, she took a bite as well. Tui, it tastes awful. Ha ha ha. The two girls, faces scrunched in disgust, looked at each other before bursting into carefree laughter. Chapter 14, I want to build an utopia. Wah! Help! Big Brother El is so scary. He crushed the nun to pieces. Soon enough, the children who had almost been sold woke up. Each of them was terrified, clinging to the giants and crying uncontrollably. There, children. Don't cry. You're safe now. The giant women comforted them one by one. Mountain Beard frowned and softly asked, Children, tell me, was it really Carmel who sold you to the world government? Yes, the nun became so mean. She had those men in suits lock us in cages. They gave her lots of money. Hearing this, there was no longer any doubt. The giants were filled with anger, clenching their teeth, furious at both Carmel and the world government. How utterly shameful! While boiling with rage, Waterfall Beard covered his face, feeling humiliated. We've lived over 300 years and still let the world government and a human trafficker play us for fools. It's not your fault, elders. The world government and Carmel were just too cunning. Yes, those bastards are too despicable. We can't let them get away with this. We need to expose the truth to the world, to show everyone the true face of the world government. The giant warriors, seething with anger, tried to console the elders while expressing their determination to reveal the truth. Elders, it's unlikely you'll be able to expose the truth to the world. El, who was sitting nearby, threw cold water on their enthusiasm and reminded them, the world government controls countless news outlets. Public opinion across the seas has always been in their hands. When the time comes, the shameless world government will likely twist the facts, accusing you, the warriors of Elbaff, of colluding with me, a remnant of the Lunarians, or claiming that you were the ones who killed Sister Carmel, smearing both the Holy Mother and the government. You should be mentally prepared for that. The giants had to acknowledge that public opinion across the world was, indeed, under the firm control of the world government. After centuries of domination, the image of the world government and the Navy as the guardians of justice was deeply ingrained in the minds of countless people. Most would be easily swayed by any narrative the government put out, believing that the giants were conspiring with the Lunarian remnant, El, to kill the Holy Mother and defame the government. However, with the towering respect and influence Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard held as the world's oldest warriors, they could at least open the eyes of most giant warriors to the true nature of the world government. You're right, El. Upon hearing this, Mountain Beard, who had dealt with the world government countless times and had witnessed their dirty tactics firsthand, took a deep breath and nodded with resignation. That's always been the way of the world government. In straightforward combat, the giant warriors were unmatched. But when it came to underhanded schemes, they were no match for the dishonorable tactics of the world government. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been fooled by Carmel and the government's staged performance, completely unaware of the deception. But even so, we cannot let them get away with this. We must reveal the truth to the world. Waterfall Beard stroked his long beard and said solemnly, at the very least, we must prevent the giants from being deceived and used by them again. Exactly. We can't let this go unpunished. Mountain Beard agreed, his old eyes blazing with anger. The honor of Elbaff's warriors must not be tarnished. It was clear that the giants would not let this injustice go unanswered. They would surely rally their forces to retaliate. Even if they didn't go to war with the world government, they would not allow the government to continue their arrogance. But for now, there's another issue. Mountain Beard furrowed his brows as he pointed to the children of the House of Lambs, who were still crying and confused. The current problem is what to do with these children. Given what had happened, it was clear that the children couldn't stay in Elbaff any longer. The warriors of Elbaff were not known for their kindness or compassion. The only reason they had allowed Carmel to establish the House of Lambs was because they respected her as a holy mother. Now, looking at these children from various races around the world, the giant warriors couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness, as they were reminded of how their honor had been trampled by Carmel and the world government. Even if Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard allowed the children to stay, there was no guarantee that other giants, who were impulsive and quick-tempered, wouldn't unjustly blame and mistreat the children for Carmel's crimes. After all, not every giant had the patience of a saint, and Elbaff warriors, known for their strength and ferocity, were often viewed by outsiders as wild and violent. Wah! Sister Carmel was a human trafficker. Big Brother L, is that true? No, it can't be true. Wah! The children, unwilling to believe that Sister Carmel had been a human trafficker, were thrown into turmoil. Though they didn't want to accept it, the testimony of their peers who had almost been sold, along with the confirmation from El and the giants, left them with little room for doubt. Some were still crying in confusion and fear. Let me take care of them. Looking at the lost and helpless children, El didn't hesitate. He turned to Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard and said, I'll take them in and raise them. Even though Carmel was a complete fraud as a holy mother. His gaze was firm as he clenched his fist and declared loudly, I believe that the dream of peaceful coexistence among all races is not an illusion. It comes from the hearts of people who long for peace, for a better life, and who hold on to that hope in their hearts. I've already made up my mind. I'm going to change this broken world, alter the fate of the Lunarians who have been oppressed and hunted for centuries, and put an end to it all. I'm going to build a utopia where all races can live together in harmony. El spread his arms wide, his eyes blazing with determination. I'll create a nation where people of different races, with different beliefs, can live together peacefully, free from racial hatred and discrimination. A place where there are no barriers between us. For a moment, the entire village of Elbaff fell silent. The giants, from Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard to the other warriors and the children, all stared at El in stunned disbelief. Could such a place even exist? Could it really be possible? Bakakaka. Zabazaba. Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard exchanged glances and burst out laughing, tears streaming from their eyes. As expected of a warrior favored by the sun god. If anyone can do it, El, it's you. Zabazaba. Chapter 15, Gerd's ability. Hey! When El returned to the coast and revealed Carmel's true identity to Gerd, the giant girl stood frozen in shock, unable to believe what she had just heard. Sister Carmel was a human trafficker? Is that true? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, that's exactly the situation. El shrugged, continuing, but now, I'm going to take the children from the sheep's house away from Elbaff and move them to a nearby island. I'm going to lead them in creating a utopia, a place where all races can live happily together. Is that your dream, El? Gerd asked, filled with amazement, clasping her hands together, admiration shining in her eyes. That's incredible. Really? Linlin's eyes sparkled as she eagerly raised her hand. Big Brother El, can I come too? Of course, Linlin, you're like my wings. El chuckled, patting her head with a warm smile. Hee hee. Then I want to come too. Gerd declared confidently, not wanting to be left behind. All right, but you'll have to wait until you're a bit older. Otherwise, your uncle and aunt won't allow it. El teased, playfully pinching Gerd's chubby cheeks. In the meantime, you should train hard and get stronger. Okay, I'll do my best, El. Gerd responded enthusiastically. Then, as if remembering something, she excitedly added, Oh, El. I think I've learned Sister Carmel's magic. Look. She stretched out her small, white hands toward the flowers at her feet. All of you, start moving. Swoosh, swoosh. To the surprise of both Elle and Linlin, a strange light emerged from Gerd's hands, enveloping the flowers. In an instant, the flowers displayed childlike faces, smiling cheerfully as they swayed and danced. I'm a flower. A flower, a flower. Flower, flower. The brightly colored flowers had taken on human-like faces, dancing and singing, leaving everyone in shock. Wow! That's amazing! The flowers have come to life. Linlin blinked her white eyes in awe, looking at Gerd with admiration. Gerd, can you do magic like Big Brother L too? Hee hee. Thrilled by the praise, Gerd puffed out her chest proudly. Pretty cool, right? Is that the soul fruit's ability? Elle was dumbfounded. Carmel had often demonstrated her powers to the children of the sheep's house, calling it magic. Gerd, having seen it before, naturally assumed it was real magic. However, Elle recognized it immediately as the ability of the Paramecia-type soul fruit. He had gone to great lengths to search for the randomly reborn soul fruit, only to come up empty-handed. But now, it seemed Gerd had unknowingly inherited the ability. Did you eat a strange fruit with special patterns on it? Elle asked directly. A strange fruit? Gerd tilted her head, thinking for a moment before recalling, oh right. Not long ago, Linlin found a weird fruit in the forest, and we shared it. Yes, the fruit was so pretty, but it tasted awful. Linlin chimed in happily. You say that now, Linlin. Gerd, still unaware of her incredible luck, playfully knocked on Linlin's head and scolded her, hands on her hips, if you hadn't shoved it into my mouth, I wouldn't have eaten it. It was so disgusting. He hadn't expected the power he failed to reclaim had ended up with Linlin, who then shared it with Gerd. Was this fate, or did the devil fruit choose its own wielder? Either way, it was a twist of fortune that had resulted in Gerd obtaining the soul fruit's abilities. Alright, Gerd, don't blame Linlin anymore. Elle chuckled, patting both Gerd and Linlin on the head with a smile. You've really lucked out. That wasn't ordinary magic, it was the power of the legendary devil fruit. Sister Carmel didn't have some magical ability, she had the Paramecia-type soul fruit. He explained to Gerd and Linlin, it seems when I killed Sister Carmel, her power randomly reborn somewhere in Elbaff's forest, and Linlin ended up finding it. It's a power that grants souls to inanimate objects, bringing them to life. It's an ability many would envy but can never obtain. You should thank Linlin, she's the one who gave you this incredible power. Although Linlin had missed out on acquiring the soul fruit's abilities by accident, it wasn't a loss for her. Strictly speaking, the Zoan-type mythical beast fruits were far more suited to someone like Linlin, a naturally powerful being. These fruits provided substantial boosts to physical capabilities, as well as additional abilities, enabling users to unleash even greater strength. Coincidentally, on his journey from the Calm Belt to Elbaff, Elle had passed by a place called Forgotten Island and, after some effort, obtained a rare mythical Zoan fruit from an ancient ruin there. It was a perfect match for Linlin. Hey! Chapter 16, Gift, Bat Fruit, Mythical Zoan Type, Vampire Model. Is that so? By the coast, after listening to Elle's explanation, Gerd finally understood what a devil fruit was and comprehended the full extent of the soul fruit's abilities. She was utterly stunned, never imagining that she had stumbled upon such a great fortune by accident. Linlin, thank you so much. She threw herself at Linlin and hugged her tightly. Although she had become a landlubber and was now cursed by the sea, unable to swim, she had gained an incredible and powerful devil fruit ability in return. According to Elle, once she mastered the soul fruit's powers, she could try infusing parts of her own soul into flames or clouds to create powerful homies, allowing her to indirectly control elements like fire and lightning. Eventually, she could even fly and manipulate the weather. Hee, no need to thank me. Linlin, who had missed out on acquiring the soul fruit's powers, didn't show any jealousy or regret. Hugging Gerd back, she happily said, we're best friends, after all. Yes, we're best friends. Gerd grinned, her joy evident. Haha. Seeing this, Elle smiled softly. He then reached into the sack he was carrying and pulled out a grey wooden box. Smiling, he said to the two girls, I actually had a gift prepared for both of you, Gerd and Linlin. But now that Gerd is already a devil fruit user, we'll have to reconsider that. Initially, Elle had planned to give the paramecia-type dice fruit to Gerd. This fruit not only allowed the user's body to become as tough as steel, impervious to weapons, but also let them turn any part of their body into sharp blades capable of slicing through anything. It was a fitting ability for someone from the giant race, known for their immense size and strength. However, now that Gerd had the soul fruit, it was no longer necessary. A gift? Really? Linlin looked at Elle with wide eyes, filled with anticipation. Gerd, however, was curious, staring at the mysterious box and asking, is it a devil fruit? That's right. Remember this. A person can only have one ability. Eating 2 devil fruits will cause the body to explode. This is common knowledge on the seas. Elle explained with a smile, not keeping them in suspense any longer. Opening the box, he revealed a deep purple, apple-shaped devil fruit. It wasn't the dice fruit he had taken from the world government, rather, it was a rare fruit he had found on Forgotten Island during his travels through the first half of the Grand Line. Yes, it was the bat fruit, mythical Zoan type, vampire model. By eating this fruit, the user could transform into a legendary vampire, gaining the ability to steal youth and life from others to keep themselves eternally young. Additionally, it granted several other extraordinary abilities. Although it was unclear whether the vampire form could grant true immortality, it undoubtedly allowed the user to retain a youthful appearance for an exceptionally long time. Giving this fruit to Linlin seemed perfect, as Elle didn't want his queen to eventually turn into a haggard old woman. He had retrieved the fruit from the village earlier. Hey? Is this for me? Linlin accepted the fruit, surprised. Elle patted her head, smiling as he explained, although it doesn't taste good, it will give you great power, including the ability to fly in the sky. Flying in the sky? Really? Linlin's eyes lit up with excitement. Yes, if you swallow it all at once, it won't taste as bad. Elle nodded with a grin. Given Linlin's size, the mythical Zoan bat fruit, vampire model, was only about the size of her thumb. Hee, okay. Without hesitation, Linlin tossed the fruit into her mouth. Gulp. She swallowed it in one go. Big brother Elle, can I fly now? Linlin eagerly looked at herself, impatient to see her new abilities. Not so fast, don't be in such a hurry. Elle chuckled. Elle, what power does Linlin's fruit have? Gerd asked curiously. It's the bat fruit, mythical Zoan type, vampire model, Elle replied. Hey? A bat fruit. Gerd's eyes widened. A vampire form? Does that mean I'll turn into a vampire? Linlin was startled. Don't be scared. A power isn't inherently good or bad, it depends on how you use it. Elle reassured Linlin with a smile as he patted her head. The vampire form not only lets you fly, but it also allows you to stay young forever. Linlin, you wouldn't want to end up looking like Sister Carmel, would you? Elle wasn't envious of the vampire model at all. After all, the mythical Zoan snake fruit, Quetzalcoatl model, that he had acquired was on par with the legendary fish fruit, Azure Dragon model. It was undoubtedly one of the most powerful abilities on the seas. Its many accompanying abilities, such as controlling wind, lightning, and fire, manipulating plants, and regenerating through shedding skin, made it akin to possessing multiple paramecia-type powers in one. On top of that, the Lunarian race's natural ability to control fire combined with the fruit's powers in a synergistic way, amplifying the effects far beyond what one could imagine. These enhancements not only strengthened his already formidable body but also significantly increased his power, speed, defense, endurance, and healing ability. With his already durable, nearly invincible defense and the Lunarian's racial trait of ignoring most damage, Elle was practically unkillable, making him a terrifying force to reckon with. Turn into an old lady like Sister Carmel. Linlin recalled the wrinkled and unattractive face of Sister Carmel, shuddering with disdain. No way. I don't want to become an old hag. Gerd, on the other hand, wasn't too concerned. Giants had a naturally long lifespan. For instance, the 2 giant elders, Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard, were over 300 years old. Even if she didn't live that long, living to 200 or 300 years wasn't an issue for her, and she was still only 12. That's why I'm giving this power to you, Linlin. Elle placed his hands on her shoulders, smiling as he said, look, Gerd is a giant and will live 3 times longer than a human. I'm also half giant and a Lunarian, so I might live just as long as a giant. But you, Linlin, even though you're large, are still just a human. By becoming the user of the vampire model, you'll not only remain forever young, but you might also gain a longer lifespan. That way, we can be together forever. Unlike Linlin, a mutated human, L's mixed heritage as a half-giant left the length of his lifespan uncertain. He had asked Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard about other half-giants in the past, and they mentioned that if not cut short by accidents, most half-giants lived at least 150 to 180 years. However, L was a unique case, being both Lunarian and half-giant, as well as a naturally powerful being. If he inherited the best of both bloodlines, he might live as long as, or even longer than, pure giants. If given the chance, L wouldn't mind living for a long time. And as far as he knew, there were several ways to achieve immortality. For now, though, he was confident he could easily live up to 200 years. Even if his lifespan didn't match that of a giant, it would far surpass that of an ordinary human. And in a century's time, when he was still in his prime, there would be plenty of time to explore ways to extend his life. Be together forever. Linlin's eyes gleamed as she exclaimed excitedly, "Then I want to be a vampire. That way, we can stay together forever, Linlin." Gerd hugged her happily. Hee hee. Chapter 17, Toto Land? Dreamland. This chapter is proudly sponsored by Daxter. Please join me in expressing your thanks in the comments. If you're interested in sponsoring a chapter, consider joining the Patreon. The next morning, bright and early, Elle led Linlin and the promising children from the sheep's house, who came from various parts of the world and different races, to board a large ship provided by the giants. They said their goodbyes to the two giant elders, Mountain Beard Yarl and Waterfall Beard Jorl, before departing from Elbaff. Their destination was the island where El had killed Carmel the day before, a place with fertile land and beautiful scenery, ideal for establishing a future base. As for the bodies of the world government agents, El had long disposed of them by commanding plants to toss the corpses into the sea, where they were devoured by sea beasts and sea kings. Thus, the scene wasn't particularly gruesome, certainly not enough to scare the children from the sheep's house, who were still anxious and uncertain about their future. Tisk, tisk. El, is this mess all from your battle with those world government dogs? The aftermath is truly chaotic. Despite the cleanup, the disorderly and overgrown trees and vines left the giants who accompanied them like Kashii, Radin, and Oimo slightly surprised. Big brother El, are we going to live here now? Linlin tugged on El's sleeve, curiously surveying the surroundings. In fact, she had slowly realized that she might have been abandoned by her parents. But, being naturally carefree and open-hearted, she didn't stay on Elbaff's coast foolishly waiting for them to return. Instead, feeling a little lost, she clung to El even more. Yes, this will be where our dreams begin, El said confidently as he patted her head. From today onward, we'll live here and build our own home from nothing. As for the future Toto land, it wasn't yet known by that name. But there was no rush, they would use this place as a base for the time being. Once they gained enough strength and manpower, they could occupy it formally. The place where dreams begin. Our own home. The children from the sheep's house, eyes teary, looked up in awe at El, who appeared as tall and grand as a small giant. Their once lost and confused expressions began to brighten. That's right. We will build our own dreamland here. El spread his arms wide, smiling as he declared loudly. Yay! That's amazing! Big brother El, we'll follow you. Building a dreamland, is that real? The children from the sheep's house, being just kids, couldn't hide their excitement. They waved their hands enthusiastically, their faces lighting up with smiles as they echoed El's words. The gloom that had weighed on them began to lift, and they started returning to their usual lively selves. El, you can definitely do it. Gerd and Hatruden, two of the giant children who had come along, smiled as they spoke in support. Seeing the children from the sheep's house stop crying, the giant warriors smiled as well. All right, everyone, let's get to work. Before dark, we'll help El and the others build some houses. Okay. After arriving on the island, Kashii and Oimo started giving orders to gather tools and begin cutting wood for construction. There's no need for that, El waved them off, stopping them before they could get started. Leave it all to me. Roar. To everyone's astonishment, El let out a low roar, and his body rapidly expanded before their eyes, transforming into a majestic, towering Quetzalcoatl, covered in gleaming scales and radiant feathers. He hovered in the air, imposing and awe-inspiring. Crack crack, is this the legendary mythical Zoan type ability? rarer than even the Logia types. Even though I've seen it before, every time El transforms, it's still breathtaking. Indeed. The sight of the enormous and powerful Quetzalcoatl left Kashii, Oimo, and the other giant warriors in awe. Wow! So cool! Linlin's eyes sparkled with admiration. Big Brother El has transformed. Through her own practice the previous day, Linlin had begun to grasp the powers of her vampire form, allowing her to transform into a giant bat and fly freely. But compared to El's majestic Quetzalcoatl form, her abilities seemed insignificant. How did Big Brother El turn into a giant bird? One of the children from the sheep's house asked, wide-eyed. Don't be stupid. That's clearly a giant snake. Hatruden retorted, correcting him. But snakes don't have wings or feathers. Another child pointed out innocently. Hatruden was stumped. Well, he had never seen a snake like this either. Not only did it have feathers, but it also had two pairs of wings completely different from each other. Idiot, Hatruden. This is the mythical Quetzalcoatl, Gerd knocked on Hatruden's head, putting her hands on her hips as she scolded him. It's the legendary sky god, the god of agriculture, and the sun god. Actually, Hatruden was twice El's age, already 18, but outwardly he looked like a boy no older than 10 because giants developed more slowly due to their long lifespans. Hey? Sun god! Big Brother El is the sun god. Hatruden and the other children from the sheep's house were filled with disbelief. Crack crack crack, Hatruden, don't be so surprised. This is a different sun god from the one we worship in Elbaff. Radin, a member of the giant pirate warriors and Hatruden's mentor, laughed as he explained. Ah, I see. Hatruden scratched his head, suddenly understanding. Just then, under everyone's shocked eyes, the massive Quetzalcoatl's fearsome eyes gleamed with a red light as El shouted, Rise! Dreamland! Boom, boom! The earth rumbled, and countless plants began to move as if they had a life of their own. Whoosh, whoosh! Massive trees and vines shot up from the ground, weaving and intertwining. Flowers of every color bloomed, and before their eyes, multi-level wooden houses rapidly took shape, firmly rooted in the ground. Around the trunk of an enormous tree, which had grown to a height of hundreds of meters so large that even 6 giants couldn't wrap their arms around its spiral staircases made of vines twisted upward. At the top stood a large observation tower, complete with a giant windmill spinning in the breeze. There were even playgrounds with slides, seesaws, pirate ships, Ferris wheels, swings, and merry-go-rounds all designed for giants, incredibly large and intricate. In the blink of an eye, a large part of the island, which was about 10 kilometers in diameter, had been transformed into a dreamlike children's amusement park. The rest of the island, aside from necessary living and activity spaces, was reserved for growing crops or medicinal herbs. Both food and medicinal herbs were highly profitable industries, and the Quetzalcoatl was associated with rain, sowing, harvest, and abundant crops. With his power to control the growth of plants, El planned to use this ability to its fullest potential. In the future, El intended to monopolize the export of food and precious medicinal herbs in the New World. After establishing large-scale cultivation and obtaining numerous seeds, he planned to occupy and develop uninhabited islands in the Calm Belt, planting valuable crops and gradually expanding his influence, reaching even the first half of the Grand Line and the Four Blues. After all, pillaging was a one-time business, but this would be an endless source of wealth. Chapter 18, Linlin Abilities. This chapter is proudly sponsored by Daxter. Please join me in expressing your thanks in the comments. If you're interested in sponsoring a chapter, consider joining the Patreon. Wow! Amazing! Big Brother El, you're incredible! I want to ride the Ferris wheel. I want to ride the carousel. Gazing at the dreamlike amusement park before them, Linlin, Gerd, Hatruden, and the children from the sheep's house had eyes sparkling with excitement as they rushed forward, eager to play. This is unbelievable. It's like a miracle. He can even do something like this. His power is too extraordinary. Is this guy a god? It feels like a dream. Even the giants were left dumbfounded. Their jaws dropped in disbelief as they stared at El, who had transformed into Quetzalcoatl. They marveled at how this young man, with both Lunarian and giant blood, combined with his mythical Zoan abilities, seemed capable of anything. No wonder Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard held him in such high regard. Phew! El's massive body shrank back to his normal form as he exhaled deeply. Doing all this at once isn't easy, he admitted. However, as he looked at the masterpiece before him, the Dreamland amusement park, he couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. Soon, once Gerd mastered her soul fruit powers, they could harvest the souls of pirates or marines and inject them into these plant-based structures, bringing the amusement park to life. Elle even envisioned collecting plant seeds from all over the world to grow here, like the Yarikaman mangroves from the Sabayati archipelago or the unique plants from Boyne archipelago. With all that, this place would truly become a dream kingdom. Elle, you're amazing. Gerd rushed over to him, her eyes sparkling with admiration. I want to stay here too. She clung to Elle, captivated by the place and unwilling to return to Elbaff. If you like it, then you can stay for a few days, Elle said with a smile. Since they were close to Elbaff, letting Gerd stay for a short time wasn't a problem. Besides, Elle had always intended to bring her over. The power of the soul fruit would be extremely useful in the future. That's great. We won't have to worry about Gerd's safety with Elle around. Oimo said with a grin. I'll explain everything to your parents. Really? That's wonderful. Gerd was thrilled. Big brother El. Even Hatruden, who was usually shy, looked longingly at Elle, clearly wanting to stay but hesitant to ask. If that's the case, you can stay too. I'll take you both back to Elbaff in a few days, Elle said, giving Hatruden a light pat on the shoulder. Elle valued Hatruden as a future ally among the giants. With some training, Hatruden had the potential to become a formidable fighter. More importantly, with both Hatruden and Gerd as connections, combined with Elle's relationship with Elbaff, he would be able to recruit more giant warriors in the future. That's awesome. Thank you, big brother Elle. Hatruden grinned from ear to ear. Despite being much older than Elle, Hatruden greatly admired him. Elle wasn't just immensely strong with an indestructible body, his combat skills were far superior. Even when using only as much strength as Hatruden, Elle could easily overpower him, earning Hatruden's respect and loyalty. Big brother Elle. Gerd. Hatruden. Come join us. Linlin, already sitting on a giant swing made of sturdy vines, called out excitedly. Okay. Wait for me, Gerd. Gerd and Hatruden eagerly ran towards Linlin to join in on the fun. Elle, however, didn't immediately join them. Instead, he smiled and waved goodbye to Kashiai, Radin, and Oimo as the giants prepared to leave. He watched as they rode away from the island. Safe travels. Goodbye. They called back with smiles. Just as Elle turned back around, he heard the children from the sheep's house shouting in alarm. Ah! What's that? Is Linlin a monster? She turned into a giant bat. Looking up, Elle saw a massive bat with purple-black fur carrying Gerd and Hatruden as it flew swiftly through the sky. It moved like a shadow, disappearing into the clouds with incredible speed. Put me down. I want to go back to the ground. Linlin, I don't want to fly this high. Wah! As the ground grew farther and farther away, Hatruden and Gerd screamed in terror, their faces pale with tears streaming down. Hee, let's go higher. Linlin, in her vampire bat form, was ecstatic and paid no attention to their cries, flapping her wings and flying toward the top of the tallest tree on the island. She quickly soared past the giant windmill and landed on the huge lookout tower at the tree's summit. Huff, huff. I'm alive. Gerd and Hatruden collapsed onto the floor of the lookout tower, their faces as white as sheets. They sat there, panting heavily, as if they had narrowly escaped death. Gerd, Hatruden, look. The view is amazing from up here. Linlin, now back in her human form, stood at the edge of the tower, excitedly gazing at the vast landscape. Gerd, regaining her breath, lightly smacked Linlin's head. Linlin, that was reckless. But soon, she too was captivated by the breathtaking view. Her eyes sparkled as she shouted, Wow! This is incredible! Hee, isn't it amazing? Linlin beamed, stretching her arms out wide. What a troublesome kid! Elle smiled wryly and, with a strong flap of his black wings, swiftly flew up to join them at the top of the tower. He had to admit, Linlin's talent was remarkable. In such a short time, she had already mastered much of her vampire Zoan abilities. Aside from being able to steal youth and lifespan, she could transform into a giant bat, and if needed, split into countless small bats to evade attacks or launch assaults on multiple targets at once. These bats shared the same strength and resilience as her main form, making them nearly impervious to regular attacks and even immune to normal fire. Their teeth were razor-sharp, capable of biting through thick steel plates, making their attacks extremely powerful. Moreover, they could directly drain blood or steal the youth of their victims. All this, and she had only just begun exploring the full potential of her powers. Gerd called excitedly as she pointed out to sea, where the giant's ship was sailing away. Look! The view from here is so beautiful. You can still see Kashii and Oimo's ship. Like a fallen angel, El's towering figure landed gracefully on the lookout tower. Linlin, you haven't had any formal training yet. It's dangerous to carry people while flying like that. Don't do it again, okay? He gently scolded, knocking on Linlin's head. He then pinched her chubby cheeks, resolving to help her lose weight soon. After all, the future most beautiful woman of the seas couldn't stay this plump. Ouch! Linlin rubbed her forehead, nodding sheepishly. I understand, big brother El. Good. Look at poor Hajrudin, you scared him half to death, El said, glancing at Hajrudin, who was trembling as he tried to stand. Do you want to go back down, Hajrudin? El asked. Yes, yes, big brother El, please take me down. Hajrudin nodded quickly, his voice trembling with fear. Seeing him sweating and shaking, afraid even to look over the edge, El chuckled. Hey, don't tell me you're afraid of heights. Who's afraid of heights? Hajrudin, feeling challenged, tried to prove himself by looking down. Then, thud. He immediately collapsed to the ground, clutching El's leg as he cried out, Wah! Big brother El, please take me down. It's too high up here. Hey! Linlin, feeling the cool breeze and looking around, scratched her head in confusion. Is it really that high up? If it weren't for the height of the tower, she felt like she could fly even higher. Hajrudin is such a scaredy cat, shame on you. Gerd teased, sticking her tongue out at him. Haha. El couldn't help but laugh at Hajrudin's reaction. All right, stop crying. I'll take you down now. Chapter 19, Dreamland Amusement Park. This chapter is proudly sponsored by Daxter. Please join me in expressing your thanks in the comments. If you're interested in sponsoring a chapter, consider joining the Patreon. Everyone. I won't say much more about the matter with the nun. Some of you are more mature and sensitive than typical children, and you're likely already aware of her true nature. As the sun set, the children from the sheep's house, along with Linlin, Gerd, and Hajrudin, gathered on the beach. El, towering like a small giant, stood among them like a crane in a flock of chickens, while the others sat obediently on the grass. No one was playing around anymore. Instead, they all listened intently to El's words. In any case, from today onward, we're a family, and we'll live together. El declared loudly, looking at the children from the sheep's house. Since you all call me Big Brother El, I won't abandon you. You can rest assured. This Dreamland Amusement Park is just the beginning. I will lead you in building a kingdom of our own, where people of all races can live together peacefully and harmoniously. Yes, Big Brother El. From now on, we'll follow you. That's right, Big Brother El, you're our guardian now. We'll listen to everything you say, Big Brother El. Please don't leave us behind. One by one, the children's eyes lit up with admiration for El, their voices full of enthusiasm. Big Brother El, I want to be a part of this too. Linlin shouted. Me too. Added Gerd, as both girls clung to El's arms. Of course, you two are my wings. El smiled as he pinched their cheeks. Linlin, being naturally powerful, would undoubtedly become a key fighter in the future. He remembered Gerd had a talent for medicine, which could lead her to become the team's doctor and a fighter as well. Moreover, her soul fruit abilities would make her invaluable in both combat and other tasks. While the fruit's powers couldn't directly heal others, the potential applications of giving life to objects were endless. Hee. Both girls were overjoyed by El's acknowledgement. El then looked at Hajrudin. Hajrudin, do you want to join us as well? Compared to Gerd, Hajrudin didn't have as much potential. He might not become a force on par with a Navy admiral, but with the inherent strength of the giant race, he could still be cultivated into a valuable asset. Me? Can I really be one of your wings, Big Brother El? Hajrudin blushed, feeling ashamed. But earlier, I was so embarrassing. Hajrudin, whose dream was to become a warrior as great as Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard, had been mortified by his fear of heights. He was still haunted by how he almost wet his pants when they were flying just a few hundred meters off the ground. Everyone has things they're good at and things they're not. What's important is to face your fears head-on, not to run from or avoid them, El said, patting Hatruden's shoulder with a reassuring smile. Hatruden, I believe one day you'll overcome your fear of heights. Big brother El. Hatruden gazed at El, who stood tall and confident before him. Even if one day the great duel between Blue Ogre Dori and Red Ogre Bragi concludes, and the giant warrior pirates rise again with one of them returning in victory. El continued, placing a firm hand on Hatruden's shoulder, with your current strength, you're still far from being able to lead them. Instead, why not train with us on the seas and sharpen your skills? I believe, in time, you'll surpass even Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard to become the strongest giant warrior. Hatruden was still somewhat naive and idealistic at this point, unlike his future self, who would harbor grand, unrealistic ambitions of becoming king of the giants. His current dream was to become a warrior as respected as Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard. All right. Hatruden's face flushed with excitement. I'll follow you, big brother El. From now on, you'll train with us, El smiled. When we return to Elbaff in a few days, I'll explain everything to your teacher, Radine. Since Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard were quite old, they no longer had the energy to guide someone like Hatruden, whose talent wasn't particularly outstanding. Usually, Hatruden trained under his teacher, Radine, a former member of the giant warrior pirates. Over the past 6 months, Mountain Beard and Waterfall Beard had taught El everything they knew, including the secrets of Elbaff's spear techniques. Out of respect for them, El refrained from using his special observation haki to read their memories. Now that El had learned almost everything they had to offer, he was ready to teach Hatruden. All right, meeting's over. Time to prepare dinner. El clapped his hands, pleased with himself for convincing Hatruden to join their ranks. As for Gerd, she was definitely not going anywhere. Once everyone has eaten and rested well tonight, El said, his tone serious as he looked around. This will be the most comfortable and peaceful night you'll have for some time. Starting tomorrow, I'll be training all of you to become proper warriors. Linlin, Gerd, Hatruden, you'll be training too. No one gets to slack off. Linlin wasn't the only one shocked. Gerd was equally surprised. She pouted, realizing this wouldn't just be a vacation in the Dreamland amusement park but would involve training just like in Elbaff. Yes, big brother El. Hatruden and the children from the sheep's house, however, were full of energy and excitement, eager for what was to come. Chapter 20, The Spear of Elbaff. This chapter is proudly sponsored by Arthur Morera. Please join me in expressing your thanks in the comments. If you're interested in sponsoring a chapter, consider joining the Patreon. Everyone, take this seriously. No one is allowed to slack off, and whoever does won't get breakfast today. Time flew by quickly, and a week had passed on the island called Dreamland. At the entrance stood a large sign reading Dream Home. On the beach, children of various races: humans, the Snake Neck Tribe, the Long Arm Tribe, the Long Leg Tribe, Fishmen, and the Mink Tribe were diligently practicing their stances, throwing punches in unison. Linlin, Gerd, and Hatruden each occupied their own space, practicing with weapons, their faces filled with determination. Gerd wielded a long-handled axe, Linlin a large blade, and Hatruden a double-edged sword. El led them from the front, standing by the shore and practicing with a longsword, while occasionally supervising the group. After a few days of strict training, everyone had been punished by El a few times, so none of them dared take the training lightly. Even Linlin wasn't an exception, as she had learned the hard way. When punished, she had to stand on one leg and watch everyone else eat, unable to join them. For Linlin, this was the worst punishment imaginable. El had even warned her that if she disobeyed again, he would buy a large quantity of delicious treats from a nearby island and let everyone eat except her. The mere thought of such a punishment was enough to scare the little glutton into obedience. From that moment on, she trained diligently, following El's intense regimen. Huff, huff. El swung his sword, each slash creating shockwaves that rippled across the sea's surface. Suddenly, a massive shadow appeared in the water, moving at incredible speed, getting closer and closer. A giant sea king, attracted by the commotion from El's training, emerged from the sea, its terrifying jaws opening wide as it lunged toward him. Ah! It's a sea king! The sudden appearance of the creature caused the children from Dream Home to scream in shock, startling even Hatruden and Gerd. Elbaff's spear. However, L, whose observation haki was always active, remained calm. He had sensed the Sea King's approach long before it surfaced. His eyes sharp, L raised his sword, the massive blade cutting through the air with immense power. Great nation! Whoosh! The air twisted as a cylindrical shockwave of sword energy shot forward, splitting the atmosphere. Boom! In an instant, the Sea King's massive head was pierced straight through, leaving a gaping hole. The shockwave continued, carving a deep trench in the ocean far beyond. Crash! With its life extinguished, the Sea King's enormous body collapsed into the sea, creating a huge splash. Is that? Hatruden's eyes widened in shock. Elbaff's spear. Wow! I've heard of it, but this is my first time seeing it. Gerd was equally astonished. Is that one of Elbaff's legendary 3 spears? The power is unbelievable. Although they were born in Elbaff, neither had ever seen the famed spear techniques in action, only heard tales of their incredible power. After all, very few warriors could master these techniques. The 2 elderly giant leaders, Mountain Beard Yarl and Waterfall Beard Jorl, certainly knew them, but they were too old to demonstrate now. Wow! Linlin's eyes sparkled with admiration. Amazing, Big Brother L. Will I be able to master Elbaff's spear one day? She mimicked L's movements with her large blade, her heart filled with longing for such power. Ah, the sea was torn apart. That Sea King was taken down in one strike. Amazing, Big Brother L. The children from Dream Home stared in awe, their eyes wide with excitement as they gazed at L's towering figure in admiration. Did you all see that? L turned to face the excited children, smiling as he spoke. This is the result of my training in Elbaff over the past months. If you work hard enough, you may be able to reach this level too. So, if you want to become as strong as me, you'll have to train even harder. Elbaff's spear consists of 3 techniques. The first, Hero's Spear, requires no weapon and focuses all of one's energy, spirit, and strength into a single, devastating punch. The second, Mighty Nation, involves using a sword or other weapon to unleash a massive shockwave of energy that can tear through anything. The third, the most famous technique of Elbaff, is Conqueror's Spear, a combination attack requiring 2 or more giant warriors to unleash an even more powerful shockwave, capable of destroying everything in its path. El had spent months in Elbaff rigorously training day after day. In the past few days, he had successfully mastered both the Great Nation technique and the Hero's Spear. Although it wasn't easy for others to learn Elbaff's techniques, El used them to inspire the children. Yes, Big Brother L. I'll work hard. The children of Dream Home, as well as Linlin, Gerd, and Hatruden, were all bursting with excitement, filled with energy and enthusiasm as they continued their training. Seeing such power up close, how could they not yearn for it?
Thanks for listening.